as Wilco makes a run ahead of him. Bergkamp suddenly changed pace through the centre. It's Bergkamp! That's magnificent! The move, and then this, which left Dabby's ass totally stranded.
Hello and welcome to Bergkamp Wonderland. We are an Arsenal podcast. My name is Kris. I'm your host, and here we are to talk about the evening after the afternoon before. Makes you feel a bit rough even just thinking back to it, but we will come on to it, of course. Welcome to everybody in the chat. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate each and every one of you. Yes, all 10 of you. I'm kidding. Hi, everybody. Right, let's get on with the show then. I'm going to introduce my guests. First of all, in the top right-hand corner of the screen, it is Brighton's #1 fan, occasionally supports Arsenal when it suits him. Hi, Josh. Just kidding. How you doing, mate? All right?
Yeah, I mean, the only game I managed to watch all season and we don't bloody win. Better go back to Brighton. It's no point. Pointless.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'm glad to be back. I feel like my return has been overshadowed, though, by our next guest.
Yes. Yeah, I sort of feel like we should all kind of stand up, maybe play the national anthem, something along those lines, because it's been a while, unless you listen to other podcasts, which they do exist. I don't want to promote other podcasts, but the man, the myth, the legend, definitely the myth, because you can't see him. We've seen him, though. He is real, and he's Mr. Geoff Arsenal. Geoff, how you doing, sir? Welcome back.
Kris, yeah, it's been a while. It must be, you know what? Button Monkey Danny, he's not here. I was going to ask him when was my last appearance, because it's been a while, mate. I know that. It must be over a year, surely.
It's got to be. I have a sneaking suspicion before the end of the show, Danny will find that information out and put it on the screen. He has a habit of beavering away in the background. But good to have you back, mate. You keeping well?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Very, very well. You know, it's family and work commitments now. I can't get on nowhere near as much as I'd like to. But, you know, I listen every now and again and I see you guys beavering away and cracking away. So it's all good. And I'm pleased to be on tonight.
Good man, absolutely. I'm sure that'll change when we get into it in a minute, but good to have you back. And as everybody knows, that there London is a busy old place. So anytime we can get with Geoff is always a pleasure. So let's crack on then. And we'll start with you, Geoff, actually, because we're not going to do a whole match report. As probably everybody knows by now, we're not really the podcast for match reports. There's plenty of others out there if you want that. We're just going to do a bit of a kind of a raw reaction and pick out the bones of what happened yesterday. So it's a 2-2 draw. I'm guessing you were there, Geoff. What was your overall thoughts post game, and how did you feel? As my tagline says, they celebrated a draw levels, because I just it felt like a defeat to me.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I really fancied us going in, and I was so busy during the course of the morning, and I had lunch with a good friend of mine, and I didn't even know what the team was. So I didn't, until I got in my seat and saw the players coming onto the pitch, I only then realised that we didn't have I knew Martinelli was unfit, but I didn't realise that Trossard wasn't playing. And that, I thought, oh, hold on a minute. So let me have a look at the lineup. Then I see Jesus on the left-hand side, and I thought, you know what? I'm not sure this is going to work out how we really, really want it to work out. But we done well. The first 15 or 20 minutes, our pressing was brilliant. See, that's the thing. I would rather have. I think Jesus is the best presser in the Premier League. And you know, he's so frantic of going about things that I think if he was, pardon me, if he was playing as a 9 instead of Eddie, which I know he does his best, I think it would have been a whole lot different. And if we had Trossard on the left-hand side, I honestly do think the game would have been considerably different, and we might have got a better result out of it. But, you know, as the game went on, that first 15, 20 minutes, we looked like, okay, we're on this. But then we just seemed to run out of a bit of steam and lost a little bit of, you know what, when they started playing Tottenham, they're a decent side. You've got to give it to them. Unfortunately, they are a decent side. Ange Postecoglou, he has got them playing, and he's got them believing in themselves. That's a similar type of way that happened to us last season when we had that great start and everyone had confidence. And they was popping the ball about at our place, and they haven't done that at our place for years, you know. So, and I think everybody else in the crowd had the same thoughts because it went very quiet. It was a light at first, but it suddenly went a little bit quieter. Thinking, hold on a minute, we've got a game on. But you know, we went on, and no doubt we'll talk about it as we go along. You know.
Yeah, for sure. The first the silence that greeted that first equaliser was deafening. That really was like pin in balloon situation. Two quick things actually. Danny's just put up on the screen there that your last appearance, Geoff, was December 21. Good Lord, how time flies!
It's not true. That can't be true.
Danny's
really?
the man with the stats. Yeah, apparently so.
Wow, amazing. There had been a time.
Yeah, it's been a while, and you've hit on so many points that we will drill into shortly. But no, I completely agree with everything you said there. And there was a nervousness. It's funny you mentioned about Postecoglou and Spurs. Do you know what it reminds me of watching them yesterday? And don't get me wrong, I will be giving them no credit. That's the only credit they're going to get on tonight's podcast. But reminds me of when Redknapp was there. Just that carefree attitude, just go and play. For all his faults, Harry Redknapp, he got that side playing back in that day, and it does look a little bit like they've reincarnated themselves with that. But that's enough about them. Josh, talk me through your perspective on it, because there was a fair bit of discussion in our WhatsApp group yesterday. A few things that we were all sort of speaking about. There's quite a few points you made that I tended to agree with as well, which happens every once in a while. I just don't like to give you any credit. But what was your overall kind of feeling post game? And you know, it's not a game you can ever enjoy, is it? But after that, after the way it ended, and after coming out of it when we probably should have won the game and didn't, did it leave you feeling a bit hollow as well?
Yeah, it was certainly a draw that was snatched from the jaws of a victory. I think that's the way it kind of felt to all of us. And yeah, I think, as you say, it had that kind of swashbuckling style from Spurs, which we've not seen since the Harry era. And I've not really seen a team do that against Arsenal since maybe... It's either when Brighton probably last went there, or someone like Blackpool with under Ian Holloway. That's that kind of football where there seems to be no control, but control at the same time. I think that was personified by Basuma's performance as well. I thought he was just, despite being on a booking, he was excellent, especially when we lost Declan Rice. And I think that's the big thing that came to us, that we started the game with 5 key players missing and ended the game, or we got to halftime and we had 6 key players missing and playing third choice in 2 key areas of the field, which normally if you said Arsenal had 6 first team players out and they were spread quite evenly across the field, you'd be like, well, we could cope with that. But losing Reiss at the same time, of which we've lost Partey already, and Jorginho is the only available option. And I think in a time where we needed a physical presence rather than that controlling presence in the midfield, it really highlighted the issue we had. Somewhere where, you know, that loss of Granit Xhaka kind of really showed that we missed that steal. Because I don't think Spurs were, you know, as good as they weren't that threat in the first half. The second half is when we looked far more shaky. We lost control of the game. And they played us absolutely perfectly. If you look at how stop-start that second half was, we just couldn't build a rhythm at all. And I can see that's probably why we brought Jorginho on, was because we struggled with that. But there were so many, and I'm sure we're going to go into some individual player performances in a bit, but there were so many performances that we saw that didn't have that spark and that venom and ferocity that you'd want from Arsenal players, especially Hale Enders in the North London derby. We kind of missed that, and that missing kind of cutting edge we seemed a bit too clinical, a bit too Guardiola, if you want to put it that way, that kind of mundane recycling of football with very little penetration. And that's not what we kind of needed at that point. It was more of that kind of basketball game, and we tried to bring that momentum out of it, when actually I think we were better trying to just continually batter down the doors, because there seemed to be something where we just took our foot off the gas, and there were opportunities, I think, there to really test Spurs. I think after 20 minutes we had Udogie on a yellow card, and at no point did we then try and make that a red. And he's got a lot of praise for his performance post the yellow card, but I think that also comes down to us kind of taking a back seat. And yeah, there were many other options, I think, for us to really put Tottenham to the sword. But I have to also, from a neutral point of view, it was a fabulous game of football to watch, because it was end to end and you didn't know which way it was going to go. And it feels like Arteta tends to, in this situation, kind of drink the Kool-Aid and go a bit too far and throw on 4 forwards. And for once, he didn't do that. And we didn't lose the game like we've seen him do at Man United a couple of times, and Liverpool, where we end up finishing the game. We've got 4 forwards, no midfielders, and Saliba is just our only centre-back. And it felt like we were missing something there. And he's tried this alternative approach and it's not worked either. But yeah, Kris, how did you feel the game went, without parroting too many of the things? Because obviously we agree on everything.
Yeah. I just felt sick, to be honest. I don't, probably much like you two, I don't enjoy these games. I mean, obviously you do if you win, but that's post, isn't it? I don't enjoy any part of this. I must have gone for a piss about 8 times in the second half. And I did that thing that I'm sure everybody in the chat and us 3 listening now, I'm pretty sure we all did that thing where it went to 2-2 and we all sat there and went, we're going to fucking lose this. We're going to fucking lose. Because it just felt like that was the way it was going. And when they brought on Richarlison fraud, I thought, if that guy scores, I'm done with football. Like, I'm just done completely. But yeah, I felt rough. A point you made actually on that, on the game of football itself, 3 bookings to 4, 3 for us, 4 for them. But I can't really remember there being a tackle in the game. It's weird. It didn't feel like feel like the scrap there,
other than the Eddie Nketiah one.
Yeah,
we nearly killed that
probably should have walked for, in fairness. Yeah.
Yeah, the Odegaard one, which I thought was a stupid yellow card.
It was.
I think I'm not also,
sure. He's the captain. I do agree with these bookings. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. But
yeah, I'm pretty sure the captain gets a sorry, mate, you've forgotten how this works.
Yeah, exactly.
Go.
Yeah.
I think if it was, if their he wasn't even their captain, was he? Their captain's still technically at the club, but it's been stripped. But the one who's now scoring for fun in the Bundesliga, if he'd have done that, he wouldn't have got that yellow card. No. We'll put it that way.
I don't think Son would have either.
Fair, the same thing happened in the second half, didn't it? Where who was it?
I think Basuma was the name.
Basuma,
that's how he got his yellow.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So fair enough. I don't mind it when there's consistency.
Yeah, I agree with that. Geoff, just bringing you back in here. Josh touched on something that I want to go into as we sort of go into the game itself. So we go a goal up through Saka, who I think he had a bit of a mixed day at the office, and he's had a sort of a bit of a mixed couple of weeks. Really, he's obviously brilliant. There's no criticism here, but he's been a little bit up and down so far this season. He really took a chance cutting in off that left-hand side. We've seen him do it 100 times before. Hits the shot. Romero, who is just, I don't even think he's a footballer, let alone a defender. Something about him I can't stand. But anyway, ball goes in off him. It's a little bit of fortune for us because I don't think it was on target. What was your thought when we got that 1 goal up? And we'll come on to the Jesus chance in a minute. But I think Josh has made a point there. Udogie was booked very early on, and it felt like Saka sort of retreated instead of really taking the game to him down that right-hand side. It just felt like we kind of backed off a bit. Did you feel the same way in the ground?
I just think they come into the game a little bit more at that stage. And, I mean, he was giving him a torrid, wasn't he? Time down that right-hand side. And you're right what you're saying. We should have we have got to be a bit more cunning, a bit rat-like cunning, a little bit more than what we, I mean, last year we was a little bit more clever than what we have been at the start of this season so far. And you got to just let him have the ball and let him punch on and carry on, because it would have been inevitable that he would have kept on fouling him because he was ruining him. So that was a little bit disappointing. The goal, I think we deserved the goal, definitely. The little bit of pressure that we had, it was coming, but he done great. And the worst thing you could do, I mean, I think Saka's amazing. I think he's one of the best footballers in the world on his day now. He really is, and he's pushing on. But if you let him, it's crazy. You let him come inside on his left foot, because he's either going to put a lovely cross in or he's going to have a shot on goal. I'm not even sure it was a shot. Was it a shot? I think it was a cross-come shot, wasn't it?
Half and half, sure. Like caught in two minds, yeah.
Going by the movement of our forwards, it was probably a shot. There was no one in there.
No one in there, yeah. And that's another thing we need to come on to as well. Yeah. But, when it went in, the euphoria in the stadium was great, because, we was a little bit flat at that stage. We were a little bit flat with worry of, are we going to break this lot down? But, I mean, it was fantastic. It was great to see.
What did you make of, obviously, so we get the goal, we're in front, and then we get that really big chance through Gabriel Jesus. We will talk centre forwards in a little bit later on, because obviously we want to get the game through first of all, and that's definitely a debate we'll have tonight. But to me, it summed up Jesus. I think what you said there, he's brilliant at pressing, his all-round game, his enthusiasm, his heart, his determination, his hunger. Everything is there, but he's not a natural finisher, is he? And that shot struck me as a man who, just in that split second when you needed the Odegaard, low drive into the corner, he just kind of thrashed at it, didn't he? And 2-0, I genuinely think Spurs fall apart at that point.
Well, he does it. I mean, when he came to Arsenal, we had a mental pre-season, scored loads of goals, and I thought, oh mate, this guy's going to take off. And then we saw his first few games, and he had loads of chances, but he didn't stick them away. And I've noticed that, I'll tell you what it is with him, in my opinion, he's so busy across the pitch doing everything, and he's so tricky, and his mind is working so quickly that once he gets in front of goal, one thing a striker needs to do once they're in front of goal, calm yourself down. You don't need to burst the ball. You don't need to burst the net. Calm yourself down. Sometimes you can miskick the ball and it will go in because you've sent the keeper the wrong way or something. But calm yourself down. And if he would only do that. And funny enough, against Manchester United, when he went through, I thought, okay, let's I was thinking in motion, okay, what's going to happen here? Is he going to, he's going to try and chip him? Or is he going to try and, whatever? But once he scored the goal against United, sat the geezer on his arse, or sent him out for a packet of beef and onion crisp or whatever he did do, and then slotted it, I thought, that's it. Maybe he's had a bit of training, and he's realised he needs to just calm down in front of goal. And if he could only do that, mind you, if he listen, he'd probably, if he was a goal scorer, he'd probably still be at Man City, mate. No one would be about to buy him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the thing, and that's the reason probably why Pep let him go, because he knows that he's give him time. He's a fantastic player. He could be an absolute world beater if he could just calm down in front of goal, And that's, if he could do that. But it's very hard to change your mindset. It's the busyness in his mind. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And it's not a criticism, and I think that's an important thing to put on this podcast, because we are going to go into some things that will come across as quite critical.
Yeah, I don't mean that in a bad way. I wouldn't change him. Don't get me wrong.
No, same.
I want him just, if he could just be calm in front of the goal, he'd get 25 goals a season.
Yeah.
I don't think him missing that chance either was the thing that not lost us, but didn't get us the win. If you know what I mean. It was so early in the game, there were still opportunities for us to claw it back. And
I
he certainly
just
wasn't the only one at fault.
Well, see, there's a fine line in football, especially big games like that. We all know these big games. I mean, you're right about the changes we had to make, and we've got 5 players out. That always seems to happen against the bigger teams. Unfortunately, with Arsenal, we've had loads and loads of times. You think, oh, someone's been sent off the week before, or you know, we've got a couple of injuries. But there's fine lines, and the fine lines run from, like, you know, he nicks the ball off of Maddison, blasts it over the bar.
Yeah.
Maddison nicks the ball off of Jorginho, and they're back in the game.
Yeah.
Those fine lines, they define parts of seasons. You understand me? Because now, you know, we'd be flying now. We just beat Spurs, you know. Because I don't. If we'd have gone 2-1, I think we'd have controlled it. But at that stage, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, those are the fine lines of minutiae that happen in games that can you know decide matches, and that is when he missed that chance, it was vital.
Yeah, completely agree. What about that equaliser sandwiching all of that information then, Josh? Because it was a weird one. We had that Raya save, which at the time, I must admit, I thought, Christ, that's a worldie. And don't get me wrong, it's still a very good save, but Brennan Johnson simply has to score. I mean, he makes a right dog's dinner out of that. But it is a very good save. And at that point, you know, Spurs were coming back into it. They did take the game to us. I just look at that equaliser, and we'll come on to the second equaliser, but both goals, to me, they were just so avoidable. And the second one obviously has its own connotations that we'll touch on in a sec. But the first one, for me, it's a catalogue of several errors. You know, Raya sort of flaps a little bit of that cross, or, you know, for me, he should have just turned it behind. You've got the Saka incident where I mean, again, like Geoff says, love Bukayo. It's not a criticism, but he basically just gets done by Maddison. It's a poor attempt at trying to jockey him out, and he just lets him go. And then you've got 3 Arsenal defenders all converging on the same spot. I can't stand Son. I can't stand his pikey little face, but it's a good finish. He gets in between all 3 and he gets that foot out. But to me, that's 3 individual errors that cost us that goal. Is that, what do you make of that, Josh? What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I can't really go into any more depth on that, to be honest, because it's exactly as I feel. It was a catalogue of individual errors, and I think we probably need to talk about Raya as well. I know we've already mentioned the excellent save he made, but I felt like, you know, we've seen him play 2 very clean games against Everton and PSV, but it felt like against Spurs, like he was playing for Brentford, where a kick to touch was an acceptable long goal kick, and they just weren't sticking. The decisions he was making when kicking long just wasn't there. And obviously, I don't have the benefit of seeing the entire pitch and knowing if there was anything on or not, and if whether or not Spurs' shape, you know, outside of the viewport of the TV screen, was enough to be suffocating our forward line. But it felt like the outballs from him just weren't good enough. And I think that's kind of culminated in this goal, that it just culminated from us not being able to hold on to possession and letting Spurs come onto us. And whilst they had that opportunity, which kind of came, you could feel it coming, and so it didn't necessarily come out from nothing, but still at that point, I thought we could kick on and we could do something here. That is a very different feeling than I had compared to the second equaliser. I still had that assumption that Arsenal were good enough to come back against this. So whilst it was disappointing, and yeah, I agree, Saka should be taking out Maddison. If you've just gone up there, scored a goal that's had a massive deflection and done James Maddison's celebration, you do everything in your power not to have egg on your face and the potential for him to get a goal or an assist. And you just take him clean out and take that corner. Now, I know our defending of corners of late has not been great, but I don't feel we should be at that level where, who was it? Was it Paddy Kenny? Was it Stoke? When he was playing Stoke and put the ball out for a corner rather than a throw in because he was so scared of the Rory de Lap throw. I'm sure it was him.
Again.
But there were a couple of, I'm sure I've seen a couple of instances of that where they were so scared of it. Were we that scared of corners? I think at the moment, I'm more scared of us kicking off. That's the number of times I've seen us concede with early goals. So, it just felt like a little bit of a kick in the teeth, but not so much that I felt like we were out of the game.
Let me ask you both this question before we move on, because it's relevant. Phil Macker, our regular, has put in the chat. I'm failing to see the upgrade in Raya. What do you guys think? I mean, I'll just chuck my 5 pence in. For me, I think he is a better keeper than Ramsdale, and I think that some of our views on Ramsdale have been a little bit swayed by the fact he's a lovely bloke who is clearly very likable in the dressing room and has done seemingly nothing wrong. I just think that at the elite level, and again, we'll come on to replacing players in a bit, but I think that personally, I do think he's an upgrade. Let me ask you both, Josh, for you first. Like, are you, based on what you just said then, are you more Camp Ramsdale in this? Do you sort of feel like it was an upgrade we didn't need?
I think it's difficult. And I think even as Ramsdale and Ramsdale Senior have said, he needs pushing as a player. He needs a threat in behind him. And Matt Turner, as good as he was and a great guy, it sounds like he was as well, wasn't the guy to push Ramsdale to the next level. And David Raya coming in certainly feels like that. And I'm not going to chastise a guy for one bad game, not necessarily of, he's suddenly a terrible goalkeeper. And I think the same goes for Ramsdale as well, that Arteta's doing something quite brave in, if the goalkeeper messes up, he's got a good enough backup goalkeeper that people are always going to say, you should have played Raya for this game, or you should have played Ramsdale for this game, when they inevitably have a poor game. But
is he, sorry to interrupt, but is he creating that problem? Is the manager almost creating that problem by making it so clear that there is no number one, and that basically any single mistake means you're out potentially?
I'm probably in quite a good position where I can say Robert De Zerbi is doing exactly the same thing at Brighton and no one is batting an eyelid.
That's because they're winning.
Jason's well.
And they're not in a title race.
To be fair, the games that have been dodgy are the ones that Verbruggen has started, and he's been a lot shakier. But he's 19,
he's what, 21, is he?
21. Yeah. Young goalkeeper, and you got Jason Steele on the other side.
Yeah.
But I think it's still the same logic, that there are times when Raya's profile fits a game better than Aaron Ramsdale's. And to be honest, for the North London derby, I want that fire in the belly starting from number one all the way up. And I feel like, although, and I think it was one of your complaints, it said we were too emotional. I think that was one of the things we were missing, was the emotionalness, or the emotions of Aaron Ramsdale in the net for the North London derby. Because and you can see it, the way he chastises that defence. They're not putting another foot wrong at that point, or he would be out there pushing Jorginho, pushing Reiss, and don't give it away like that. You don't get that from Raya. It's a little bit calmer. And he claims crosses a lot better than Ramsdale. That's a given. Yeah. And so there are opportunities, and I can see it. Against Everton, I think Raya is a perfect choice for that.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure if Ramsdale was that option. It should have been the option for today or yesterday.
Agreed. What about you, Geoff? And also, what were people saying around you in the ground? I mean, was there any chat about it, or was it very much Raya's in and that's just it now?
My personal opinion is you should never stop trying to raise the ceiling in every single position.
Yeah.
No matter who they are, if you can get a better player, you've got to be ruthless. I mean, we've moaned for many, many years when Arsene was in charge how loyal he was to players, and he didn't want to take on another player because it would block Ramsey, etc., or whoever it was that was coming through. So we suffered there, really, thinking about it now. So you must always raise the ceiling if you can. And I think the opportunity came along with David Raya, and he's run with it. In my personal opinion, I do think he's better across the board. He definitely claims the ball better when it's in the air, and there's nothing better if you're under pressure, and especially against a long ball team, when you've got a keeper that can come out and claim it and say thank you, I'll take that. because it puts thoughts in. They're not going to keep on kicking it long then if the keeper keeps on picking it up. You know what I mean? It's no problem.
Yeah.
And I just think he's overall a better keeper. Against Tottenham, you were saying, Josh, I think Postecoglou did his homework against for Raya.
I agree.
And I do think that, you know, he's so good with his right foot and he's so accurate with his right foot. They just pressed him on his right hand side, so he had to shift it onto his left foot, and then it's hit and miss. Whether I mean, you know, if you're playing with your opposite, you know, foot, you're not that. It's your less stronger foot. It's a weaker foot. You don't know where you're going to really cook it, and I think that's what's happened. So it's a little bit unfortunate, but I think, you know, Postecoglou maybe done his homework, and it seemed a bit of where he kicked it out 3 or 4 times with his left foot. It's hard, but really I do think he's the better goalkeeper overall. It's great to have a challenge for Ramsdale. It's a shame, and I feel bad really, because Ramsdale, he's been part of that where we've picked ourselves up and we've really had a go, and but you know, at the same time, he has made some vital mistakes in games and cost us points. And you know, sometimes you've got to be a little bit ruthless, and I think Arteta has done that. He's been ruthless. He's more comfortable in his own mind with Raya. He sees him playing. He sees him been training every single day, and at the end of the day, it's his call, and I'm going to back him.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the right attitude to take. And I think, you know, like you said, and once again, feel like I'm going to keep saying this, but we'll come on to improving the squad in a bit. What about how did the ground change when we got back in front, Geoff? Because there was to me, there was absolutely no doubt that was a penalty. Obviously, you wouldn't have heard this at the time, but during the commentary, Gary fucking Neville, honestly, that man there was a time when I actually quite respected what he says. That's all gone.
I'm going to agree with him later, by the way. Sorry.
Oh God, I might be off for that bit. But he was giving it beans about how, as a defender, you know, where's a defender supposed to put his hands and blah 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 blah. To me, if that defender's not there, that's a goal, and there is no other argument. It's a penalty. End of story. Was there any concern in the ground that they wouldn't give it because it's Arsenal, Geoff, at the time? And also,
I said it. I said it because it seemed like they took ages and ages in the stadium. It was like
such an easy decision to make as well. Like,
what the fuck's happening? No, I didn't even know it was. I gathered it was handball, obviously, right? Yeah. But I didn't see it, and obviously they don't show it on the big screens or nothing, which they should do, right? Yeah. So we can all make our own mind up. So I had no idea whether it was handball or not. It was just like, well, okay, we're going to have to wait. And I was funking that he was given the directions to go over and look at the screen, because 9.5 out of 10 times he's going to come back and say that's a penalty. Yeah. So, and I think everybody around me was feeling the same way, because we didn't know what was going on, mate. You know, was it a penalty? Was it not? And the longer it was going on, I was thinking, oh no, he's not going to give it. They're taking too long. It's a hand, but it's either a handball or it's not, mate. You got to make a decision, you know. And it's normally easy to make a decision with, isn't it? It's not like you're drawing lines and everything else.
No.
So, but when he was sent over to that was it. The elation for, oh, here we go. It's definitely a penalty. But then you start shitting yourself because you don't know who's going to take it, and it's Tottenham, innit? Anything can happen.
That was my next question. What did you think when Bukayo stepped up? Because as much as we all love him, obviously Odegaard has taken the last couple, and I must admit my hoop was 50p 5p when I saw Bukayo take the ball.
Yeah, well, you know what? They've done that a couple of times now, haven't they?
Yeah.
Where someone's picked the ball up and they've switched it over. I think Saka, the first time I saw it, picked the ball up. Another game, I think it went like this. Saka picked the ball up, then all of a sudden he's give it to Odegaard. But this time Odegaard's picked the ball up, looked like he was going to take it, and then Saka's took it and obviously took the ball and put it down. No, I'm quietly confident with Saka, which proved to be right in the end, because he's very accurate, you know.
Yeah,
I know he's missed a couple, but no, we was all right. But I did, I had no idea, mate. Penalties are hit and miss. I did think Jorginho was going to be, because he's a master technician at the penalty, isn't he? So I did think he was, and I was a tad disappointed for about 2 seconds.
Yeah. It was a good pen in the end. And before I go to Josh, just one other thing I wanted to mention. We'll come on to the equaliser. Sorry, Josh, you get the first shitty stick on that one. But the only other thing I wanted to ask you, Geoff, is I think Josh mentioned this earlier on. What did you feel? Again, probably in the ground, you wouldn't have necessarily taken notice, but in light of the cold light of day, this whole sort of Saka thing of the dart, I maybe I'm being a bit old fashioned here, but I don't like it, and I tell you why I don't like it. To me, you'll get your Maddison said he didn't see it at the time, blah blah blah, but someone would have seen it, someone would have known what was happening. To me, it just gives the opposition that little bit of a shot in the arm, that bit of adrenaline. And I would just rather, I know he started doing the Rashford thing and whatever. I just prefer our players to celebrate their goals in their own way. And I just didn't feel, especially after he got turned inside out by Maddison, the same player, 5 minutes after scoring. And again, it's not a criticism of the bloke. Saka's got every right to celebrate. He might have had a joke with Maddison pre-game. They're England colleagues. It might have been an in-joke for all we know.
Yeah, that's what it was.
I just didn't really like it. Did you have an opinion on that?
You know what? I didn't even know until I come back and watch the highlights on the match of the day that he did that.
Yeah.
The dart throwing thing, and I don't think anybody else did, unless you're right in front of where Saka, ran to.
Yeah.
But overall about that, I'm thinking, I know what you're saying, but I think it's just an in-joke between the two of them. A little bit of a piss take and everything else. He's obviously, he might have had on the WhatsApp group society, he might have been taking the piss out of him or something like that.
That's how it came across. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was a personal thing. But yeah, I know what you're saying. When 5 minutes later on, he goes up pitch and twists you inside out. It's not a good look, mate, is it?
It's like Jimmy said, and Danny's just put up on the screen there. Like Jimmy said, it's poking the bear. But yeah, I mean, in hindsight, we win 4-0 and nobody gives a monkeys. I just thought at the time, I was just a bit like, do that at 4-0. Like, don't do it at 2-1. But
yeah, true.
Personal feelings. Josh, we have to uncover the shitty stone that is the equaliser. Obviously, at half time, we lost Declan Rice and we tactically took off Fabio Vieira. We'll touch on the substitutions a bit later on because I think they're a discussion on their own. But if Reiss was feeling something, then the right decision was made. You can't risk losing him long term, so I get that one. But Jorginho coming in, normally, I think he's done pretty well since he's come in. He's not been like some of the Chelsea players we've had in the past. I think he's a calm head. The bit I can't quite get my head around watching it back is that at the time, I thought, because I kind of turned away when it happened, I thought that he'd just sort of fallen over the ball or, the player had pressed him and he just tripped or something. If you watch it back, he seems to have quite a few seconds to think about what he's going to do. And the bit I really can't understand is, okay, it is good pressing, credit where credit's due, but he seems to turn into the press. And I just don't know why he doesn't get rid of the ball. And we'll touch on that sort of emotional thing that I mentioned later on, because I did think we came out the blocks way too fast with that particular press after the goal. But what do you think went wrong there? Like, he had so much time. What do you think was going through? What was his thought process turning that way and ultimately just giving the ball away there?
I don't know what he was thinking, to be honest. And I think only Jorginho would be able to tell you. It's probably he wasn't thinking a lot. It was either that. It was either he was completely blank or there was so much of what he needed to do and so many options. He just had that kind of choice paralysis.
It was like he was buffering.
What to do. It was. He wasn't sure exactly what he wanted to do. And to be honest, I don't think it mattered if he turned in or out of the press. He was going to they were going to go through him. And the way the Derby game had been reffed, there was no way a foul was going to get given if he was bundled over to retrieve that ball in that press. Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like it was just one of those. It was exposing that kind of weakness that we've seen from kickoff. That said, was it 3 times in the calendar year?
Yep.
That we've conceded in the first minute of a game straight from kickoff, basically, and that probably rolls all the way out to just generally looking at from kickoff, even during a game. So it felt like he was looking for something, like an out ball, but obviously clearly didn't find it in time. But you just have to think at that point that you slide the ball out to Gabriel. That's your safe option.
Yeah. Or one of the fullbacks, or
yeah. I mean, it's the Arsenal. We didn't have the fullbacks in the position.
They were
them, would they?
Halfway up.
They were exactly. They were gone. They were gone. They were sitting with Geoff with the prawn sandwiches. It was. They were nowhere. They were nowhere to be seen, and it just seemed incredibly strange. And that was the problem when it then felt like that, kind of knife to the heart, because you could see, oh shit, this is where Spurs. We've given them hope. And that's the worst thing, isn't it? It's throw a starving dog a bone, and they were just... It was going to be a difficult game because you could see clearly, and Jorginho had kind of at that point realised he didn't have the time on the ball anymore. A bit like we saw with Nketiah, where he got booked for taking out the goalkeeper. You're kind of told to, let the defender know you're there, kind of thing. And he let the goalkeeper know you don't have that long on the ball, because I was closer than you expect. But Jorginho then at that point just completely lost control. And he still did have some good moments. I think there was a through ball that he played, which I thought was absolutely superb. But we lost that steel and dynamism in the midfield. And I can see why we did that kind of double sub of Vieira coming off and Havertz coming on in his place. I don't think because Vieira played necessarily too poorly, but because if you're removing Reiss and then you've got Odegaard, Jorginho and Vieira, that is a very lightweight midfield compared to Maddison, Basuma and Sarr.
Yeah.
So we clearly needed to bring Havertz in for some kind of strength and steel and just a stature in that midfield. But it just didn't seem to really work at that point.
Did you want to comment on that, Geoff? What was it like? Because it must have been elation to absolute devastation in the space of 30 seconds.
I mean, we've got to learn our lesson. It is crazy, we're a professional football club. We've obviously got a clever coach. We've got very experienced footballers. Although there's a lot of young players on, they've played a lot of games. They've played in decent, big size games, and especially the man that we're talking about. He's won Champions Leagues and he's won European Championships at international level, etc. Yeah. I think we was looking at a player that was like a cold player that had only just recently come on.
Yep.
He hasn't played competitive football for a few games.
Reading my mind. Yeah.
But we did that high press. The first thing you need to do is fair enough, you win the ball back. But you've just gone a goal in front. Let's have 14, 16 passes, pop the 100%. Ball about.
Yep.
Control the game. Say, right, we're in front now. This is what we're going to do for the rest of the game. Come and get it. And then you're opening up space and we'll get a third goal. What you don't do is leave the smallest player and the slowest player as the last man.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. Honestly, it's crazy. Now, I like him. I think he's a fantastic addition to the squad. He's not going to be our first choice, right? But it was unbelievable how we just got suckered into it. And I think he just had a brain freeze at the time. He's trying to do a drag back. It was like, mate, what are you doing? Hoof it, do something. Yeah. Right? We've just scored, but we've got to stop. We've got to stop sticking it on ourselves as soon as from kickoffs. We've done it several times now, and we've got to get over that. We've got to learn, because otherwise it's going to cost us. It will cost us. And we can't do that in Champions Leagues, mate, because we're out.
No, we're against the very top sides. Yeah,
yeah, you're out. But when we score, even at the start of the game now, get the ball, 12, 14, 16 passes, everyone, and let teams realise, okay, they're a good side, this mob. This is how they're going to play. Put a bit of fear in them,
Can I bring in, because I tweeted after the game, and nobody cares what I tweet, but I like to, it helps get it out off my chest. So, but I said after the game, and this is exactly what I was referring to, and I said many won't agree, but one thing I'm really not a fan of with this current Arsenal setup is we're far too emotional. There always feels to be a constant need to rush things, play on the edge, and make rash choices in possession, and it makes me uncomfortable. And what I mean by that, because you can't always get how you really feel in one tweet, but this is what I'm getting at, Geoff, in terms of that we just seem to, everything has to be 100 miles an hour, or everything has to be a last minute winner, and it's all emotion. And don't get me wrong, if you think back to, you were in the heyday, thank you, Danny, a cheap plug for me there. You were in the heyday, you remember Righty, right? And Righty was a classic at this. If you think of those duels with Schmeichel, if you took that side of Righty away, you've got half the player. And I think it's the same with Mikel. If you take away that Spanish, vamos, that attitude, that aggression, that passion that he has, you have half the manager. So I'm not saying he has to take that away or dial it back. But to me, it just comes back to the whole touchline antics, the some of the quotes, the slightly chippiness with the media. I just feel that bleeds onto the pitch sometimes. And I feel like that's an area he has to develop as a coach. Because, as you said, Odegaard came flying out the blocks to press. They gave the ball back to us. And that was exactly the point where we should have, ironically, put our foot on it. Maybe not as Jorginho did. And just keep the ball. Does that come across in the ground? Because last year was fun. And we rode that wave. This year, we have to. It's not fun anymore, is it? We've got to learn from last year and be more composed. And is that coming across in the ground, that it is almost a nervous ground again?
No, to be honest with you, I think at half time when he got him in there, I fancy he said to him, "Listen, calm down. We're all running about here. Just calm. Let's just go out there and play our football. Calm down. Don't let them. Just be courageous." Right? Keep knocking them passes into people, making them triangles in all them little pods that we've got working, like we have been doing for 12 months now, 15 months now, or whatever it is. But you've got to be confident. And I think maybe that's what happened. He's got the ball and he's thinking, okay, let's keep it calm. And he's tried to drag it back. He must have realised that there was nobody behind him. There's places there's places you can take chances, but not being the last man. And you got Sonny, who's I can't stand it. He's a great player, but I can't stand him because he's just keeps on scoring goals against us and stuff. Yeah, I mean he's lightning the kid. You can't. It's given, but we must. But what you're saying about the emotions. It seems like, and this is another thing we need to do, we need to control games more at the Emirates, right? And when I say control, don't keep on giving goals away, giving teams chances. Because that's what every single game at the Emirates that I've been to for the last so many games has been like trauma. It's like, oh my God. And I'm biting in, and I'm thinking, mate, this is fucking Arsenal. We should be just popping the ball about. And keeping calm. We're bringing that emotion on ourselves. We must learn to just cut all that stuff out. But you're right about the emotions.
It's exactly how I feel. That to a T, you've summed it up exactly there. It's not me saying I don't like the way we play. It's not me saying I don't like the press. It's just that everything. It's like there's no medium with us. It's like 100 miles an hour or slow and don't really know what we're doing with it. There's no in between. Josh, did you want to come in on that? Because you said about the Ramsdale effect. You don't think we were too emotional, or where do you stand on that level?
I think we weren't emotional enough in the sense of look how Spurs played, and they played with full. I guess it depends on how we say emotion. Spurs felt like they played with passion, that they wanted to go out and really attack the game. It doesn't feel like we're creating good chances at the moment. We're creating chances, but it doesn't feel like they as many as there were. It's probably partly down to Jesus snatched at his chance, because remember, when we were scoring goals for fun a couple of in the middle of last season, probably actually towards the beginning when Jesus was available, it was Martinelli and Saka and Odegaard. Just goals were coming from everywhere. We were creating those chances left, right, and centre. That's missing. It feels like it's missing to me anyway. That not that we've run out of kind of
it's very
choices.
samey.
Yeah,
the attacks
it's
are very
those.
samey, aren't they? Yeah.
It's we're trying this move. Oh, it's not come off. Recycle, which is fine. I'd rather we kept the ball than give it away and knock it out for a throw. But it feels like there's something missing there. That kind of buzz. Maybe that was Martinelli or Trossard, or even Reiss Nelson as that option. But there seemed to be something that there wasn't. I don't know. I couldn't quite make it tangible in my mind what was missing, but there was something there. And Geoff, I don't know if that felt to you as well, that there's something missing in our attack.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. But to be honest with you, if you took maybe not, well, even Man City, if you took their 4 best players out of their team, they would. They wouldn't be the same either, but if you take out of any team, you take their best players out, if you take Reiss out and you take Martinelli's he's a fantastic player. He causes havoc,
Massive miss.
Yeah, and that is a big loss. We know that. It's like if we lost Saka, it's the same on the other side. Because we do play down that left hand side. That's a big part of our game, playing down that left hand side. Because when you get over to Saka, normally he's got 3 players around him. So we switch it quickly. Martinelli gets off him, and Zinchenko, they can do a little bit, and we can go from there. When we didn't have that, and as much as Jesus was doing a great job defensively, I want to see him as a 9, and I want to see Trossard or Martinelli out left-hand side, and they're working their little bits and pieces. Because once you get the ball into Jesus, he will create his own shit. Whether he sticks them away is another thing. We spoke about that. But he's got flicks and tricks, and he'll twist you and he'll turn you. And if he don't score, he'll lay it off for somebody, like we've seen in the past,
Yeah.
And it is difficult when you're losing certain players out of your team. It doesn't feel right. And, we need to talk about Eddie.
Well, let's do that now, because we are going to talk about the left wing situation in a minute as well. But 3 people almost in sync there. Steph, Phil and Jimmy all hit straight away. The thing missing was the forward. You're at the risk of going too deep into sort of wading into transfers, etc. Do you get the impression, Geoff, as somebody who knows a few people, let's just say that much, do you feel like the centre forward is the next big missing piece of the jigsaw that Arsenal are going to have to spend big on? Because like I don't like getting on players' backs. I'm frantically defending Kai Havertz left, right and centre at the moment because I think there's a player in there. But with Eddie, to me, and I said it on a couple of shows previously, to me, he's built for a 4-4-2 and he's built for a mid-table, kind of club. He's one of those, if you stuck him in Everton's forward line or West Ham's or Brentford, he's perfect.
Yeah.
There's something about when we play with him, we just don't get from a centre forward. And I know he's got goals, but even when he's in the team, we don't play to his strengths. We try and play him like a budget Jesus, and bless him, he's not good enough for that, is he? And I hate saying it. I don't think he's good enough for Arsenal.
I'm afraid he doesn't fit the system that Arteta wants to play. He's not technically good enough for that, Arteta wants something different. He's neither a big powerhouse or he's not a Gabriel Jesus where he can twist and make a chance for himself. He's okay. He's like a kind of like fox in the box. But
he's a finisher, isn't he? That's it.
Yeah. Well, even sometimes I don't even think he's that. I don't think he's just an out and out finisher. I don't think he's deadly, so to speak, where you've got to keep him because he can finish. It's really difficult. Cause I love him. He's great, and he's a HLM boy, and I'd love to see him, burst onto the scene again, and you just let the penny drop. All right, he's built himself up, and he's stronger now from what he was last season, and he's trying, but. To be honest with you, I just think you are seeing the best Eddie Nketiah that you're going to see at the moment.
It's that thing you said about ceiling, isn't it?
Ceiling, correct, and that is it. And we do need something else, and we will get it. We're not Man City. We can't just go out and spend. We have got to watch what we've got to spend, and we are looking at that top level striker, and I think they'll get it. I think they will get it, but it just takes time, doesn't it? They're like, they're like rocking horse stuff, aren't they? A top striker,
If it was you and I, Josh, hold your horses, Josh, because I know what you're going to say. I said yesterday, and I've been saying for a while, Geoff, for me, Ivan Toney fits that profile because not only is he big and strong, but he does all those other things. To me, he reminds me of that sort of old-fashioned centre forward with new fashion skills, if you get me with that. He is good on the deck, he is technical, but what I also like about him is he's a bit of a prick, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. Eddie, I feel, aside from that challenge, he just drifts out of games. He's not there. Toney, he's a constant menace. He winds up teams, even like Man City, what he did to them last year. And I personally feel, it sounds ridiculous to say this, but I think 60 million is very achievable in terms of transfer fee for a club like ourselves. And we'll come on to who Josh wants in a minute because he's going to cost a lot more. But is he the sort of profile striker you'd go for? Or are you more kind of an Ollie Watkins-y type, that mobile striker? I wish we could sign Nicholas Anelka again, but we can't, sadly.
Yeah, Scott, can you imagine that?
He would be perfect.
I think he's ideal for that because he gives us another variation of, sometimes. I mean, you see what Pep's done. He's got rid of Jesus, and he's got a great big languishing centre forward, and you think, well, hold on, how's that going to work? Well, because he can do it now. He's got the little fellow. Who's the other little player that plays with it? Alvarez, yeah.
He's brilliant. Physical as well, isn't he? Yeah.
He's physical. So you've got the little man in there as well if you need to just play one up top, and you've got the big lad if you need to go long, right? And I think that's what Arteta's going to do. Personally, and the little bits and pieces that I do here, I just think he's got some baggage that I think Arsenal are going to try and maybe avoid.
That's the worry, isn't it? Yeah, that is the worry with Arteta being how he is.
He doesn't really fit that profile that, and that's really all I can say.
I get what you're saying. If I swing it round the other way then, if you were to go, rather than just naming names, do you think we need to go for Premier League proven? Because can you take a risk on another foreign import that arguably doesn't, needs time to settle, etc.? Like, I feel like we need to be going after somebody who is Premier League ready, quote unquote.
Well, they did before all the noise came about over one of your lads, Josh. We was in at the back end of last season for Evan Ferguson, and we was told politely go and do one. Obviously, he's very young, but I mean, he has got a lot. He has got a hell of a lot, but he is very young.
Irish centre forward at Arsenal will never work, Geoff.
Never work. Mate, I was amongst the old boys in back, Frank Stapleton and people like that. He was brilliant. But no, I do think they'll go abroad. I think they'll look abroad somewhere and try and find someone. And I think maybe it's great if you could find. I mean, you buy a British centre forward, he's going to cost you. Well, he's going to cost you absolutely. He's going to way above what you'd have to give.
That's why it makes me wonder about the Toney thing, because it's that, as you say, it's that baggage over value thing, isn't it? Because a lot of clubs are going to look at him and say, and I know some of the arguments I got in my tweets yesterday was, well, he hasn't played for 6 months. He's not going to hit the ground running, which I think, Josh, you're going to touch on in a minute. I've got a friendly bet with Josh that he will, just because I think he's the sort of guy who will have a point to prove. But like you said, Geoff, you can't find the Jamie Vardy types anymore for 500 grand in the lower leagues. And a club of Arsenal stature, we can't go out and buy John Hart's and Chris Kiwior anymore. Like, the football's moved on. You can't go for a risky championship striker. Go on then, Josh. Tell me why it should be Evan Ferguson, and how on earth we're going to find 170 million quid for him.
I'm not saying Evan Ferguson over Ivan Toney. I think I'm more on the hard point of, I don't think Ivan Toney is the right profile for Arsenal. And I think, as Geoff's kind of alluded to,
100%.
It just doesn't just quite fit what we're trying to do here. We aren't a team full of bastards. But as you say, on Eddie's performance, and this is where I come in and agree with something Gary Neville said, was it seems like he's actually I'm going to take on from that point that never went from. Eddie seems to have lost that instinct, that fox in the box instinct, because we had that corner cut, in swinging corner.
Oh
Eddie
yeah,
should be right at that back post.
I did agree with Neville. I will confess. Yeah,
Ian Wright. I mean, even Francis Jeffers for Arsenal would have found himself back there, and poor
Diawara would have been in there, Josh.
Exactly. There were many a striker of Arsenal generation that would have just been there on the toes, ready to go. Thank you very much. I'll pick up at least 5 to 7 goals a season by doing exactly that run. And Eddie wasn't there. And it might be throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but it feels like a huge miss. And there were opportunities there where I looked at one of the balls Havertz played into the box. A superb left-footed cross from kind of that mid area, not from the wing, straight in. And I was expecting my centre forward, especially, I would expect Jesus to be running, flashing across the front of the central defender, getting onto the end of that. And it's partly where Havertz looks not good for Arsenal, because we've got that lack of movement up top at the moment.
He's finding spaces we're not taking, when we're not making the runs onto the balls. He's finding the space.
I think that's part of the creativity issue we've got, is that we're not having the right runs, and that forward line doesn't feel like it's moving in the same way. And I hate to say it, are we missing Granit Xhaka?
Well, we'll come on to that, don't worry. But Fem's just made the point in the chat, we're coaching it out of Eddie. And like I said earlier on when I was talking to Geoff, it feels like we're trying to recreate Jesus, and that's not Eddie, because the Eddie that we had, look at the goal against Man United last year. That was predatory instinct. That's where he was. That's where he gets his goals. Is it just a confidence thing? And it did make me chuckle. I saw quite a lot of tweets yesterday. Get queued up, Danny, with the Ligue 1 talk here. But I saw so many people say, oh, why did we let Balogun go? He would have been there. On the same weekend that Balogun missed 2 penalties in the derby for Monaco against Nice. That
really didn't help his brand, did it?
No, that's
really
the areas that
argument.
Balogun scored in France last year. That's exactly the areas he got the goals. So,
It does feel like there was that kind of sliding doors, that if Balogun had said, I'll go on loan for 6 months, I'll come back in January.
Yeah.
You'll look at this situation. We'd go, oh, hang on, we've made a huge mistake. And maybe we'll go back in for him.
Or if we'd have sold Kieran Tierney and not had to rely on the figures that we got for Balogun to balance the books. Yeah,
there's definitely that kind of issue at the moment. And I can see, I know that Arsenal were knocking on Tony Bloom's door for Evan Ferguson, and
along with
probably continue. Yeah, and we'll continue to do that, because he is the hottest prospect in the Premier League at the moment. I think in world football, there's other options out there that you could certainly find and cultivate, but I think that's always going to be the worry of where...
I don't see them though. Who are you thinking? Because you know me, I like the European football. I haven't seen many. Ferguson is, I hate to give you credit here, but I agree with you. He's a tier above. He's got everything at such a young age. I'm not seeing too many centre forwards in big leagues that can do it.
I think it would be someone that is, again, it's going into the real deep data that, there's obviously a reason why at some point Arsenal were looking into Ivan Toney, and it wasn't because he converts a penalty every other game. I do wonder if there's a reason Real Madrid went for Hossely, not because Benzema and they're waiting for... There was a reason why they picked that kind of profile of player. And I think it is more of picking, right, if we're going after Ferguson isn't... He's still incredibly raw. And if De Zerbi builds him up to the player that he's been talking he could be, there's a hell of a player in there. Imagine Haaland, but can actually contribute off the ball.
Yeah.
That's the kind of layer we're getting to of a player. But I think there's still opportunities out there just to bring someone else in. And maybe, we've just spoken for 10 minutes or so on David Raya and Ramsdale, and players needing that kind of pressure behind them.
Yeah, you need
and
that.
Eddie seems to be somebody who doesn't have it anymore.
No, he doesn't.
He knows that, if Jesus is unavailable, which he has been for large spells of his time here, I'm getting a run of at least 10 games. I think Danny flashed up his appearances for the last season, last couple of seasons. He's guaranteeing about 20 appearances in the Premier League every
Or
year at the moment.
Havertz or Trossard as a false 9 is the only other option you've got, isn't it? There is no
Well,
other option.
I think Trossard's a better 9 than Eddie.
I agree.
Yeah,
for our team.
Yep.
For our
false
team,
9.
I think he is. I
He's
think
got that hunger
because he's got a trick. He will spin you. He'll twist you up. You get too
Shoots
tight
from
to him,
distance.
and he'll roll you. And he he's now he is a finisher.
Yeah, he is.
You know?
Yeah.
I think that was a missed opportunity with the lineup, to be honest. And I think we were all a bit perplexed that if you've got Jesus fit, you play him through the middle, don't you?
Well, that's the bit.
100%. Yeah.
Well, shall we?
Yeah.
Oh, you just read my mind. Yeah. Shall we touch on? I can't remember who it was who put in the chat. It might have been Phil. I think a few people have said it. What's the point, Josh? Why have we given? Geoff touched on it earlier on with Arsene keeping favourites around, etc. I'm sure Reiss Nelson is a lovely bloke, and he undoubtedly has ability. Showed that with the Bournemouth goal. He's a technically very good player. Had a great spell on loan at Feyenoord. Why in God's creation have we given the guy a new contract? And we'll come on to Emile Smith-Rowe as well, because I think he falls into this bracket. Why have we given Reiss Nelson a new contract if the guy, when our first choice, not just our first choice left-sided player, but his backup as well, is also out? Why on earth are we playing him there? I get the idea of playing Jesus wide in a way because it's something different and maybe Spurs don't expect it. But for God's sake, to leave it to the last 10 minutes or whatever when Nelson come on, why is he not starting? If he's not good enough, why are we allocating contract to a guy who is not going to play other than the bloody Carabao Cup, which no one cares about?
I can only assume it's because it was cheaper than finding an alternative, was to sign him onto a new deal. But it's annoying, isn't it? It's annoying that is the way that we'd go down it. But I completely agree that what I want to see at the moment is, remember back in the Amazon documentary where I think it's in Edu and Richard Garlick's office, they've got that squad.
Yeah, all the players. Yeah,
all the players, and it's showing the depth they've got in each position.
Yeah.
I want to walk in there and I want to see where the hell Eddie Nketiah comes on the left-hand side as an option. Or sorry, where Jesus comes on the left-hand side.
Exactly, yeah.
Because it seems absurd that he's on the left-hand side over Reiss Nelson versus having Eddie central.
Or
the other way I'd look at it, look at it as well.
Left, I mean,
Jesus came off at 75 minutes, and it sounds like that was planned. He's been he's just come back from knee surgery and he's played 2 games.
He's 75 still finding his fitness.
Fine. Yeah. The only reason I could see that we parked him out left is because we didn't trust him against Romero. Sorry, we didn't trust Romero against Jesus. They wouldn't snap him in half again. And that's why we played Eddie there. That's the only logic I can see to why we kept him away from that danger zone. And to be honest, in the height of a game, he's going to be mixing in different positions anyway, and anything could happen.
Yeah.
But it seemed a very odd decision. And I feel like, I don't want to go, journalists should be asking questions like this, but they should have been asking a question like this of going, we're not talking about individual players, but don't you feel like your left wingers are a bit pissed off sitting on the bench when you've put a striker out there instead?
Yeah, that's it.
That's the low and behold. Doesn't matter who it is, if it's Nelson or Smith-Rowe who plays out there.
Yeah.
Why are they not getting a game?
Yeah.
Rather than you shoehorning in a
guy that
who can play out.
I'll tell you why, shall I?
Go on, Geoff.
Go on, Geoff.
He obviously don't trust them. It's as simple
I agree.
as that.
Yeah,
he obviously, for whatever reason, he don't trust them. Maybe they're not signed up to the system yet. They're not completely in tune with the system yet, and that's the only reason, because they've obviously got the ability, because we've seen it, with Emile Smith-Rowe and Reiss Nelson, right? And it must be about the system, and even, I mean, going back, changing the subject a little bit, I think he's made a ricket as well, playing Vieira instead of Kai Havertz.
Completely
I mean,
agree.
the physicality of, he's technically is fantastic.
Yeah.
I think we'll all agree about that. He can play. He can play on the ball. He's brilliant. Okay, but it's his physicality, and you've got games you can play him against the weaker sides, but you've got the big games. Tottenham's going to be a ferocious game, you'd think. Kai Havertz is a big strapping lad. He's a big strong boy. He can hold his own against anybody. And I know he's been taking a little bit of stick, but he's played in big games, European finals, etc., etc.
There's a player there for sure.
There's definitely a player there. Plus, he can hold his own, and he's strong. And he wouldn't have got. They were snapping straight through Vieira. You see it, and it was like it was causing a lot of friction in our play.
It was the old Vieira, wasn't it? It wasn't the Vieira we've seen the past few weeks.
I think maybe it was like a rabbit. He got caught in the headlights, But I think that was a. But listen, again, I can't criticise. I can't really criticise Arteta. He sees them on the pitch every single day,
I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's a bit like, remember when Ramsey was going through that horrible, horrible period, and Wenger kept coming out and saying he's the best guy at training. It's not my fault. He's not performing in games, and a couple of weeks ago, I remember Arteta saying exactly the same about Eddie, that he was performing in training. I can't not say you're going to play the game because he was one of the best trainers.
And I get that while Jesus was coming back to fitness, but when they're all fit, what about were you at the PSV game, Geoff, the other night?
I was, yeah.
So that ovation that Emile Smith-Rowe got, and make no bones about it, I'll just hang my flag out there. I thought we should have sold him in the summer, purely because it was, in my opinion, and I might be proved wrong in 6-8 months' time, in my opinion, we're not going to use him. And if we're not going to use him as not just first choice, but not even second choice, he is one of the few players that we could have commanded a fee for. We know Villa were knocking last summer, and I just felt that was the time to sell him. But no, they stuck with him, and also nailing my colours to the mast. I like him. I like him as a player. I think he's got a lot of attributes, and I think he's a good kid, and all of those things that go with it. You were at the ground the other night. You heard that ovation. Mikel made reference to it and said that it warmed his heart, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Why is this kid not getting a chance? Like, why is he? Because surely he could have done not just a job at left midfield, a bloody good job at left midfield, surely.
Well, yeah, I was thinking exactly the same thing. I just think that, again, everyone's different. Everyone, we've all got different opinions. And no doubt Mikel has got different opinions on all the players, and he sees them every day. I think that Emile has had, obviously, fitness issues.
And lifestyle issues. Do we think? Because there was that talk about his diet and how he lived, and I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think there's rumblings of that kind of stuff. And if you don't live right, I mean, Wenger was a strickler on that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. It was fitness. Can you get up and down the pitch and do it? I mean, especially playing out on that left-hand side, you have got to be fit. There ain't no substitutes. You've got to be fit. That's the first thing you've got to do. If it's before you've even kicked the ball, you've got to be physically, fit enough to do the job. And that's why you go back to Man City now. The kid that come from Villa. That's why he was out of the team for 6 months.
Calvin Phillips as well from Leeds. He's never got a look in.
If they're not fit enough and they don't fit into, you're sitting on the sideline, mate, and you sit down and watch the game. Watch what we do. This is what you need to do. But no, I agree with you about Smith-Rowe, because there is definitely a player in there.
Oh yeah, 100%.
He turned us round.
Yeah, he did. His goals last season
literally turned us round.
Yeah. Would you? Because again, you've seen him in the flesh. He's obviously bulked up quite a considerable amount. He looks bigger, and I think, I don't know whether it's because he wears his socks low and he has that undershirt. He always looks like he's a bit lumbering now. I don't know what it is. It's just a visual thing.
No, I think he's cut underneath, mate. It's just he's just one of them stocky kind of kids. I think. No, I think he's fit enough, and he's bulked up. He's trained very, very hard, but I think he's broke down a couple of times in between, and it's hard to get going again.
Would there have been an argument then, from your point of view, that maybe he could be that quote unquote left 8? If you have got concerns over Havertz, you put Havertz out on the left where he's played for Leverkusen, or left of a 3, and you move Smith-Rowe into the middle? Or is that again a Mikel not trusting him? But I don't see the huge, and I like Fabio Vieira. I do. Again, I think technically he's very good, but I don't think we would have been weaker having started Smith-Rowe in that central left 8, if you will, yesterday, as we were with Fabio. So was there not an argument to play him in that central role even?
No, I agree. I agree with you. But with Havertz, I would like to get to a situation and stage where we say, okay, Kyle, you're going to be the left 8. Yeah. You're not going to be a centre forward. we might need you every now and again if Jesus goes off, or
last 10 minutes or something.
Yeah, last 10 minutes we've got to push you forward. But that is going to be your position. This is how the system works. That's where you're playing. Again, even if you've got to sit down for a few games, mate, look at it. This is how we're playing. But because we don't want the situation where he was at Chelsea doing exactly the same thing.
No, that's what worries me, because I saw him at Leverkusen. This is a guy that Germany built their midfield around for a summer. Like, he's got it there. He's damaged goods because Chelsea are an absolute clown car, and I'm worried that our fans are getting that way. What was the reaction when he missed? I guess I have to say missed that shot that came to him, because his eyes must have lit up. He must have thought instant hero if I rattle this away, because I thought the technique was
outside the
good.
box, just on the edge of the box. Was it that one? Yeah,
the late one. Yeah,
it was a high bounce, wasn't it? It is difficult to get that right, But I mean, it was there for him to announce himself. And
that was the moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, my good pal when he came on, said, "That's it. This is it. This is his entrance now."
I had the same feeling, Geoff. I did.
This is it. It's written in stone. This. Yeah. And I said, I'd like to think so, but
what's it like in the ground, Geoff? Because you're there more than I think only Fem and Cargo. The rest of us don't get to go as much. Is it toxic, or is it split?
No. But it's a lot quieter. You know what? It's the expectation. It's got so much higher now after last season, how much of a great season we did have when everyone had low expectations, right? Yeah. But now the expectations have got so higher now. Everyone needs to, again, they need to calm down again and keep our feet on the floor, because we're still a team that's we're working on it, aren't we?
Yeah.
But you do get a few people that get a little bit frustrated during the match, when that level of expectancy it's not living up to what we expect.
And is a lot of that aimed at Havertz individually? Do you get the impression? Is there that sort of Chelsea-ness? Is that what people get upset about with him?
You do get a few groans. But you do get a lot. Even you get it with Eddie sometimes, and other players as well.
Yeah.
But I just think there's a player in there, and a lot of people listen. You could pick 10 people out. 5 would say, "Yeah, he's a player. We've got to stick with him," and 5 would say, "Nah, he's a write-off. He come from Chelsea. He's shit. He couldn't play it there."
Yeah.
So we just got to see. But I do think £65 million was way too much money for him.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I think we overpaid by at least 20 million on that deal, but I think we were so far down the rabbit hole we kind of had to go for it in the end.
And having said that, I'll stick my hands up, and I did it the last time I was on. I wrote Xhaka off.
Same. Yeah.
The whole time he was here.
Yeah, me.
Right?
Till the day left.
And for the last 18 months, he was probably our best player. So what do I know about football?
No, same. I wouldn't say I wrote him off, but I always had that opinion that
I did.
Granit's great, but we can do better. Like I just always felt like there was an upgrade.
I didn't even have him as great. I thought he was a liability. He was too. We used to say, didn't I? He's 20 seconds away from a disaster, the lad.
Yeah. He's and fair play to him. He's improved a lot of people wrong.
Fair play. Yeah.
And he's having a lovely time under Xabi Alonso at Leverkusen now, bless him. So,
and we're missing him.
Yeah. I bet he sits at home just quietly and goes, "Yeah, they miss me." Like, I bet secretly.
I bet he don't listen to this podcast, though, mate. Don't worry about
it. No, I bet he doesn't. If you're watching, Granit, come on. Josh, let me pick on another player. Well, not pick on. Actually, I want to praise. The one area that I think personally I'm delighted to see is back in action is the Saliba Gabriel axis because that was, and who's to say when Thomas Partey's fit again in a few weeks we aren't going to go back to that horrible experiment with him at right back. But the one thing that I think you can say of all of our squad is settled now is that partnership. Those two just get better and better, don't they? And I want to give Gabriel some praise as well as Saliba, because we all know how good he is. I mean, he's French, of course, he's brilliant. But those two together, that partnership, it's a bromance, isn't it? Like they are perfectly bonded in the ways that they play the game very differently. I just thought they were excellent again yesterday. Do you feel like that's a partnership we just have to keep together for the long term?
I think certainly in the long term, it is a great partnership. Part of me always feels a bit like Granit Xhaka, that there is an upgrade on Gabriel out there at some point. He still has that occasional rash moment where he'll go, you know what I really fancy doing today? 2 foot in a striker in the box.
Smashing the shit out.
And he'll just go into it and you can see it happen. And you're like, oh, come
what
on,
makes
mate.
him who he is.
Come on. You've done 20 games in a row where you haven't done this. And then just one game at the vital moment, you go, fuck it. All right. See you later, Haaland. And just boot him up in the air. In fact, if anybody's seen the second penalty decision for Brighton against AEK Athens, João Pedro is just, the defender just goes, fuck it. I'm just going to kick him. He's been annoying. He's annoyed me. Ball's nowhere. Just kicks him up. Gabriel, exactly the same. We'll do it. But he's good, unlike Mustafi. So we accept it. And
can't put those two in the same sentence. Jesus Christ.
It's too late. Hey, one's a World Cup winner. How dare you? Gabriel hasn't go close to his national team side. But yeah, I do feel like there is a case where I can see why Gabriel didn't start the first couple of games, because look at the minutes we've put through him. We need to find a way of rotating him out. And I think the same will come with Saliba. And I know...
Can I throw Saka into that as well, please? He plays all the reserve games, I think, at this point.
Give me a second on Saka. I think that guy needs to be dropped at some point.
Controversial opinion.
It is a controversial opinion, but at some point I might go into detail. And if not, I just leave it there. And people can decide if that was the stupid opinion I was going to put out today, because I pre-warned some people I was going to make a dumb observation.
I feel like we need to go into that in a minute.
Yes, but... I do feel like we've got Kiwior on the bench, we've got Tomiyasu as well, that we should be rotating those centre-backs. And I don't think it was a mistake letting Rob Holding go, but it does feel like we need to make sure, we do need to rotate those centre-backs a bit more and reduce the number of minutes. Look at Manchester City and look at how many minutes those defenders played. They've rotated properly.
Can you compare those two, though? Because Liverpool don't rotate them, Man United don't rotate them, Spurs don't rotate. It's only Man City, and I feel like it's because they kind of can. Because
I would say, but look at the quality of. I think. Well, actually, we'll say that Man United, should they start at the back this week?
Johnny Evans and
their 5th choice centre back,
Johnny Maldini Evans. Yeah,
exactly. But it does feel like we just need to give those other guys minutes, and I think we can say that across the field. We've just had that exact same point with Smith Rowe and Nelson. One point of Arteta's management is I don't think he puts enough minutes into other players so that they're ready when they need to be called upon. Because you know what will happen is Gabriel will play 35 games in a stretch, 2 foot someone, gets sent off, and Kiwior comes in and has an absolute disaster class because he's just so cold of a player. And you can see it happening.
Well, I was just going to say that perfectly tees me up to ask Geoff this question then, Geoff, because is there still a question to ask of the manager in terms of, again, it's constructive criticism. He is still a young manager. He's still learning the game in terms of this level, but does he still need to be better with the rotation, with the substitutions, with the management of players' load? That was really badly put, but you know where I'm going. Is there an argument for that? Because we are seeing, like Zinchenko, for example, we know he's going to get an injury at some point. We know, and he's fundamental to everything we do, whether he's good or bad. Ben White plays the majority of the games at right back, and he always looks like he's out of puff by 70 minutes. There is that argument, isn't there, that maybe comes back to the trust thing with Mikel? Is there a bit in you that thinks actually, we do need to be a little bit more sensible in those lesser games where we do need to start using the squad more?
I think he would love to, but again, it's this Premier League. You can get beat anywhere. You can get beat anywhere, and and it would look at Jorginho. You're talking about rotation. He's come on. He's given him a chance, right? He's brought him on. Of course, it was an injury to Declan. Rice had brought him on. But that's what happened, and that's 2 points we could have thrown away. It's really, it's a fine line, and we're not Man City. We can't replace a player And that player that's replacing him with is as good as the one that's, we're not Man City yet. And that's where it's very difficult. It must be reckoning. He must be pulling his hair. Oh, he's got a great head of hair, but it must trouble him that can he trust Kiwior to come on and replace Gabriel in a Champions League quarter final or something like that. I don't know whether you can. I think defenders, you could generally get away with it.
Yeah, less load through the legs.
Yeah. But I mean, every single successful football team has got a really, really good spine, and that spine consists of a goalkeeper, generally 2 central defenders. I know we play a 3 most of the time. A tight midfield, 2 or 3, 2 in midfield, and a top centre forward, and everything else you can put around there. Your rotation,
Yeah. The wingers or the fullbacks.
Yeah,
exactly.
Unless you've got 2 centre halves or 2 central defenders that can just rotate. You've got 4, in fact, and you've got 4 central midfielders that can rotate. It's very, very difficult, and he knows what he needs to do, but it's finding the players.
But is there an argument, just on the point you've made there? Is there an argument that maybe, I think Josh touched on this earlier on with the Jorginho thing, and as we've all said tonight, that sort of mistake is just one of those. He probably won't ever make another mistake like that in his career. It's a freak moment. But is there an argument that maybe he was cold? And I know that players can get injured at any point, but had he have had, say, for example, 45 minutes against PSV in a game that, PSV were dead and buried inside half an hour, could he have looked at going, right, actually at half-time, we will take off Reiss, for example, and we will stick on Jorginho because we might need him,
We did make a lot of substitutions, and he did do it early,
Yeah, true.
The players that did come off, they were more, we didn't think Reiss was going to get injured. You know what I'm saying? He's played a million games for West Ham, not been injured.
Yeah,
and players like that. It's a tough one, isn't it? It's a really, really tough one.
Yeah, yeah. I'm playing devil's advocate for sure. Yeah, it's one of those questions you've got to ask. And Josh, we've got time, so because we'll touch on Brentford in a minute, so that game's coming up soon. But before we delve into that, give us this controversial opinion then, because I think I'm going to agree with some of it, in that I do think Saka could do with a bit more competition, and he simply hasn't got that. However, I do also recognise that he's one of the best players in the world right now, and we are relying on him heavily. But he is still getting kicked up in the air. He's clearly carrying some issues. He came back from England with an issue. So your controversial opinion is that you feel he should be given some time off.
I'd put it this way. I wouldn't start him against Bournemouth.
Okay.
That's
the next league game, yeah?
Next league game. I wouldn't start him for that game.
That's at home, isn't it? No, is that away? That's away, isn't it?
It's away, I think.
Away, okay. Yeah.
I wouldn't start him for that game. And I know you can't always use other players as an example, but if anybody as a casual fan would say who's Brighton's best player, it's probably Mitoma, who he's been getting goals and assists this season for anybody in fantasy football. But if you're watching him at the game, he's been shocking. He's just got assists.
Is he gone full Rio Miyachi yet?
No, he's not gone full Rio Miyachi. He's gone full.
It's one for the purists.
Yeah, full probably a bit
Shinji
Sakura.
Kagawa?
No,
I'm just trying to think of Asian players.
I mean, to be fair, you've hit all the Japanese ones, and he is Japanese, so
he is.
You've kept this borderline not racist.
I was going to say, I'm on the really, let's move on.
Yeah, but it does feel a bit like Saka. You know how it feels like something's missing from Saka. He's still putting in an 8 out of 10, but we're not seeing those 10s anymore. It's the same with what we're talking about. Or 9s. That's the thing it feels at the moment. And at the weekend, Mitoma was on the bench. Just that 45 minutes. And Brighton, I think it was 1-1 at half-time.
That's when he came on, wasn't it? Yeah.
And then he came on at half-time, scores 2 goals. Great. Perfect. And I think that's just what Saka kind of needs. Is he needs that moment of just going, cool, all right. Doesn't actually need to be kind of a day off. But I feel like if we just put, and I think some people have mentioned already, Fabio Vieira as an option out on that right. I think that's what we all saw him as, was that cover for Saka. And at some point in a big game, a left back for a big side is going to do a job on him. It's going to do a job on Saka, and we need that fullback of, okay, what do we do now? And our entire game plan can't go out the window.
Yeah.
But it does feel like at some point it will. And it might only be, as I say, for 45 minutes. But I think you see a better Saka for that 45 minutes not on the field than you do by continually playing him for 90 minutes after 90 minutes. And maybe I'm wrong. But you know what? Arteta, prove me wrong.
Okay.
And then we'll have a conversation.
Mikel, if you're watching, you can come on with Granite and we'll have a chat.
Yeah, exactly.
Would I be right in suggesting you might disagree with that thought, Geoff, or do you think there is some merit in what Josh is saying?
You know what? It's a difficult one because he gets kicked all over the park every single game he goes, and I know, he must be made of steel or something. The kid, the way he gets kicked about. But you see, and you're talking about players getting 10s. Not all these. Very, very few players get 10 out of 10, do they? On a football pitch nowadays, because this is so difficult. Every time he gets the ball, he's got 2 or 3 players hounding him down. Especially with them low block teams, he's got nowhere to go, and that's why he can only get a 7 or an 8, or he might score a goal to get him an 8.5 or a 9. But whether he plays or not, well, listen, we've got a medical team that monitor him, a medical team that obviously look after him, and if they think he can play, then why not play him? He's our best player.
Yeah,
that's what I say.
But I'd also say, isn't it just a massive disaster if our squad is entirely pinned of the success on one player, on Saka?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but that challenge coming in from a great meaty player could happen at any time. He could have 3 games off, and the next game someone goes straight through him. So you never know. You just got to hope for the best. Yeah,
and you don't see Man City rotate Rodri, do you? And of course until he's suspended. But people talk about Haaland, but Rodri's never out of that team for a reason. He's their best player.
Yeah, but we mustn't compare ourselves to Man City because
no, I agree. But
I'm not chipping you. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Take. You got. I mean, I do it, but you got to take Man City out of it because they're just a different level. They've got the money to have 2 or 3 players in one position.
Yeah,
we really haven't got that.
I think. Even look at Spurs. They're not going to rotate Son out, are they? At the moment, they're not. Liverpool aren't going to rotate.
But I would say Spurs are now a better side that they got rid of their best player.
Well, yeah, that Josh is appearing soon on the Tottenham Hotspur podcast.
For the moment, they are. Whether that continues, I don't know.
No, true. I presume, Geoff, you were looking ahead to Wednesday when we go away to Brentford. We've actually got 3 games in a row away from home now, Brentford, Bournemouth and Lens. Yeah. Would I be right in saying you wouldn't have Saka anywhere near, not just the bench, but that squad?
I'd have him sitting there. You know what? Sunday afternoon, I'd give him a couple of flight tickets.
Yeah.
You go to Spain or wherever, right? And I don't want to see you until a week and a half's time or something.
Yeah, I agree.
You go and have a rest.
But we all know he's going to be on the bench at Brentford, don't we? We just know.
Surely not.
I think he will. I think he will.
No, I can't see it. Now, that would be a mistake.
Yeah, I agree.
No?
Is there a fashion week going on?
Is
it Milan? Is it Milan coming up?
I'm going to be at Brentford as well. I'm going to go to Brentford.
It's a good away day, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just literally, I can get there in 15 minutes.
It's a nice little ground in amongst all the I always see it on the bus when I come up because it's right in the middle of that estate, isn't it?
Yeah.
How much rotation would you do for that, Geoff? Because I'm in
everybody.
But see, I'm in that. I hate. Oh God, I'm going to feel really grim here. I hate to give Mourinho credit, but I'm going to do it. The first thing he did when he came into Chelsea, we tried to do it at Spurs. Obviously, nobody's going to do it at Spurs. Agreed, but he won silverware, didn't he? And I know Mikel's won that FA Cup, but is there this argument that maybe we should try and put out, even if we're going to rotate, a strong enough lineup to go deep in this sort of composition?
Well, no, he will. He's gonna. I think Tomiyasu will play. He might even play Ben White. But I mean, I think he's crazy if he does. He might even play Gabriel. I
think Saliba might be the one who plays, to be honest.
Again, I think he'll probably put out a strong spine, and put everybody else around them, squad players. I think Smith Rowe will play.
Surely Havertz to try and get his confidence up. And
Vieira,
maybe Eddie again. Smith Rowe.
Yeah, Eddie. I don't know, because maybe he's looking to
Cedric Suarez.
Cedric Suarez.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see Cedric.
I'd rather see Cedric start than Zinchenko, let's put it that way, because it's another player that I'm very cautious about at the moment.
Listen, I'd put a team out that can compete, because we should be able to compete, because I think Brentford are going to do the same as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean,
so let them have a little tear up amongst themselves, all the youngsters, and the flitterings. But if you look at, got the Champions League, we've got to concentrate on.
And Bournemouth are in a rough spot in terms of their form at the moment, so we need to be going there and trying to get all 3 points. You'd think
Correct.
As well.
Correct.
You think about it, a lineup you could put just off the top of my head. You can bring Ramsdale back in goal, or indeed Raya if you want to play Ramsdale at the weekend. Who the hell knows at this point?
Play Ramsdale, yeah.
So you bring Ramsdale in. You can put Cedric right back, Kiwior left back, centre backs Tomiyasu and one of Saliba or Gabriel, because probably one of them's going to play.
Yeah.
Midfield too, you can play Jorginho to get him over that horrible moment. Although, is there an argument that maybe you keep him fresh if there is an injury to Reiss?
Yeah.
You don't risk Trossard. Who do you play in the midfield? Maybe Smith Rowe centrally, and then you bring Nelson, Vieira on the right, maybe Nelson on the left, and Nketiah through the middle, or you bring Kai Havertz into the left 8 alongside whoever plays in midfield. I mean, there's a lineup there, isn't there?
Couple of young kids. What's the young kid with a left foot, tricky left foot? Nathan.
Ethan.
Ethan Wanyeri.
Yeah. Stick him in. Give him a go. It's nice little pitch. It ain't a daunting Old Trafford that he's playing at. It's Brentford. It's like it's very small.
Where he made his debut, wasn't it?
Where he made his debut, was it? Yeah, that's
exactly.
What I thought when he came on. Yeah. And Vieira had a good day there, didn't he? A few years back.
Give him a run out, and
his debut.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, maybe that's the way. But yeah, I would play Havertz, I think, because I just feel like this is the sort of game that try and get him, even if he doesn't get a goal or an assist, you just get him games at the moment, get him in that position. And I would arguably play Eddie as well. I don't want Jesus anywhere near that team. I don't want Saka near that team. I don't want Saliba near that
for
team.
For fitness, you might give him 20 minutes, half an hour or something, because they do need
Jesus, you mean, yeah?
Yeah. Just give him that match fitness. I'd definitely play Reiss Nelson for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I feel like we're missing somebody, and who am I missing out of our squad? I feel like I'm missing someone really obvious, but yeah, I think you're right. I think there's enough players in that team that you could rotate.
El Neni? Did you have El Neni?
Yeah, I don't think he's fit enough to start yet. I think he'll be on the bench. I think he's still he's been in the squads to integrate him back in, but I don't think he's fit to start yet. They won't risk Trossard if he's had this hamstring issue, and same with Martinelli. Maybe you could play Zinchenko again, fitness-wise. I'm just looking at the squad now, but I wouldn't either.
No.
The only other one I could think maybe is Raul Waters, who their talk is on the fringes of the first team at right back, maybe. But yeah, it'd be an interesting one.
I wonder if Tomiyasu came in left, but that's about it.
Yeah, no, I think we're covered on the right hand side, aren't we? I mean, Cedric's all right. Let's slick him in there. Let him earn his $100,000 or whatever he's getting.
His Winston Bogarde salary, yeah. Stick him in. Yeah, I'd like to see Tomiyasu as a centre back, by the way, because I'm going to die on this hill. It's his best position. End of story. Anyway, before I upset people, let's move on. Just one other thing I wanted to touch on the North London derby again, actually, with you, Geoff. Did it amuse you and those around you how Spurs? Well, two things. One, pre-game they said they were going to take it to us the full 90 minutes. Well, that lasted about 65, and then they retreated hard. And also celebrating a draw. That must have been nice for them. Nice little day out.
Well, I think you got to take that as a compliment, because they do recognise us as a top team now, and they're thinking, hold on a minute, we've got a draw at their gaff, and we played quite well. But it was lucky getting a draw, really. We should have won that game.
We gave them the goal, didn't we?
I'm over it now, but I was absolutely gutted yesterday.
Yeah.
I thought, we definitely dropped 2 points there.
Was that the general feel when you left the ground?
Yeah, for sure. Everyone was very flat. Everyone was very flat from as soon as they scored the equaliser.
Yeah. And I have to ask you, this is nothing to do with the North London derby, but it's just I've got a lovely image in my head. Did you purchase the new away kit this year, Geoff? Have you been seen? No.
I, you know what? I'm a funny head, me. I don't purchase kits.
I didn't think you would. No,
I'm not a kit man. I love that kit.
I do. I really like it.
And I'm going to buy my daughter. I'm going to buy my daughter that kit. Funny enough, the 10-year-old.
It's one for the youths, isn't it? What about
I love that? I love that. Yeah, brilliant.
That was your era, wasn't it? 83, the green kit?
That's probably my favourite. Yeah, that's probably my favourite kit, that one. Brilliant.
Yeah.
I love that kit.
I was chatting to...
The only time you'll see me in a kit, right, is a cup final. That's it.
Yeah. And I'm willing to bet, that's the Arsenal ladies away, which is quite an eyesore as well. And I'm willing to bet that you go cup finals with, I'm going to go with sort of 70s style, Cameron, yellow, blue sleeves, yellow.
Yeah, it all depends what we're playing in. But 1970, 71, 72, that kit, white sleeves, old school.
I can hear your friend of mine, Gav, going, home kit, red, white sleeves, away kit, yellow, 100%. Blue sleeves.
Big number 9 on the back, John Radford.
Yeah, that's it. 100%, 100%. Right. We are going to take some questions before we wrap up. So if you have any, now is the time to shove them into the chat box. We've got a couple already. In a weird turn of events, I'm going to ask them to you guys rather than throwing it to somebody else, because why not? So I think we already answered one of Phil Macus. Let me go to Fem's. Actually, we kind of did answer Fem's question about the Reiss Nelson contract, didn't we? So Fem, I feel like we've covered that one. Josh, let me give you this one from Jimmy. Why do we give long contracts to players with no other clubs want? Eddie Nelson had no other big clubs sniffing around them, yet we hand them a big contract, clearly showing that they're not big team players. What do you make of that?
I don't know why. I have a feeling there were people sniffing around Eddie at the time when we gave him that contract.
West Ham and Palace, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Certainly when he was available to go on that free, I think there were definitely teams that were in for him. But I think part of it goes into that homegrown quota. I think we're just one over at the moment. And I think at the time when we signed Eddie, we needed him to kind of fulfill that quota. And Reiss Nelson, I guess we wanted to forget someone else. I guess we really never got that explosive winger that we wanted when we tried to get Mudryk. And Nelson kind of fits that kind of similar profile. I think he's a lot better player. We should have sold him to Chelsea instead for, 200 million. But yeah, that's where I think the difference was, that I think they fit a certain profile. Why one of them seems to be getting a horrendous amount of minutes versus the other one, I'm not sure. That's a different question. But I think in those two examples, there were reasons why we extended them. And as I say, it's always sometimes cheaper to extend than to get a player of that quality. I mean, we're talking, 60 million for Ivan Toney? And I think at the time with Jesus coming in, would we have paid 60 million to get Toney out of Brentford? Or would you sign the guy we've already got and question what's happening with Balogun at that time as well?
Yeah, true.
Because I think he was coming through and we were still not sure on what we do there as well.
I am just going to put it out there, though, when Ivan Toney does inevitably move, unless he goes to Chelsea, in which case he'll go for probably about 300 million, roughly, plus about 8 Chelsea players going the other way on loan. But in all seriousness, I think wherever he goes, unless it's Man City or Chelsea, I will put it out there now, he doesn't go for any more than 40 up front. There might be 60 over, 20 million over the deal, but I don't think he'll go for more than 40. I think Brentford are trying it on there, but I don't think he'll go for as high as 60.
I think there's another team in North London that will be going there very quickly.
Yeah, he does sort of tick
especially for Brazilianism, who continues not to score goals.
Yeah, bless him. There's a couple of these questions that I kind of feel like we've answered, but I'll just give them a nod. Jimmy also asked the question about Eddie. Can we sort of give up on him? I feel like we sort of covered that one, Jimmy. So hopefully you got the answer to that one. And also Jimmy asked about Raya's first game against what you class as a top club. Actually, this is a good question. I'll check this one at you, Geoff. So Raya's first start against what you call a top class club, and he was as shaky as Danny with a wobbly wheel. We have to give we've given Aaron lots of stick, but does he do better in big games? Where do you sit on that one, Geoff? What is your thoughts on that.
Well, we can only see what we've seen. It's a very small sample size what we've seen, but I have seen him in obviously when he was playing for Brentford, and he did look quite cool and calm. That is exactly what we want: is a cool and calm goalkeeper. And I know Aaron does get a bit frantic sometimes, doesn't he? He has done in the past, and like I say, he's made a couple of rickets. But you can, I'm impressed with Raya. So at the moment, I would stick with it, and we've got to see how he shapes up.
Yeah, give him a good sample size of straight 8 or 9 games and see where we come out. On that same subject, Josh, let me throw you Phil's question. I'm failing to see the upgrade in Raya. What do you think? You didn't get a chance to talk about Raya, so what was your view on that? Do you see the upgrade there like Geoff and I do?
I wouldn't say upgrade. I think it's just different. It's different profile of goalkeeper to Ramsdale.
Style.
And I think Ramsdale's got some merits, and I think Raya's got some merits. And I think the thing that, when we get that larger sample size, the thing I'd like to see is how does Raya come back from adversity? When we concede or he makes a mistake, how does he react? Because that's one of the strongest parts of Ramsdale's game, is that mental fortitude when he does make a mistake. And maybe some people will come, well, Raya doesn't make a mistake, so he doesn't need to. But I think we've seen that there are some moments where the pressure gets to him. And it's different playing in the net for Brentford compared to playing in the net for Arsenal. And the pressures are completely different. Teams are going to attack you and get onto you slightly differently. I think that was the big reticence we had when Ramsdale was coming in, because the teams he played for before, he was doing relegation battles, but they spotted there was something in there. And I think it's the same with Raya. We just need to see how he copes with that step up. And against Everton and against PSV, he was solid. And he excelled in the places we knew Ramsdale would suffer, which is in case of claiming crosses. And you saw that we played 2 teams with massive target men. And funny enough, first time he comes up against a team where they're playing kind of a false 9 or a small, diminutive, quick, pacey striker, and we lose one of the big assets of Raya, is that the balls didn't come into the box as often as they did against Everton and PSV when they were trying to hit Luke de Jong and was it Beto and probably a half-fit Calvert-Lewin. So that's, I think, the big difference. And I'd like to see, and it'll come from Arteta. If he truly doesn't see a number 1, he will pick the best goalkeeper for the time. And I think that's where he just needs to get a bit sharper on that. But going by Arteta's substitutions and not necessarily improving those in 18 to 24 months, it might be a while before we see him pick the right goalkeeper for the right moment.
He's put pressure on himself as well, Arteta, hasn't he? Because if Raya does drop a howler, the media are going to be all over that like flies on shit, aren't they? But
it's the question of, if you are going to change your goalkeeper, do you do it after they've just made a howler?
Exactly. That's the issue. The other thing that I think none of us have really picked up on as well is there's a straight fight between Raya and Spain and Ramsdale and England, because I think everyone agrees that Ramsdale was pushing Jordan Pickford until he was left out. And I think Raya, there's definitely an opening in the Spanish squad ahead of the Euros for next summer. So I think Unai Simon's currently got the jersey, but I think the feeling in Spain is that he could be the Spanish number 1. So there's a separate battle going on with their playing time as well. So that'll be interesting.
I wonder if that's part of it, that they're kind of giving them both equal minutes to give them an equal shot. We all know Southgate, though, will have a bottle of cognac before he makes his decisions and call up 7 left-backs instead.
Pickford, Maguire, Calvin Phillips. we can all pick England's team.
I already know now he's trying to phone up the Irish FA to get Johnny Evans in.
Of course he is. Back to the questions then. Give this one to you, Geoff. From Joseph Mateo. Why do you think Arteta went for Jesus on the left? So we did talk about this, but just a slightly different take on it. Instead of Jesus central and Nelson on the left, what I want to extract from that question, because we already covered it, is do you think that we'll see this again? Or do you think that evidence of what we saw yesterday will be enough for Mikel to go, yeah, that didn't really work?
I hope so, because it didn't work, really.
No,
I mean, it's quite clear that it didn't work. I'm just thinking that we wanted to keep that press, and I'm just thinking that he thought that maybe Eddie and Jesus was going to do the job without thinking about he's changing people around in more than one places because he's taking Havertz out and putting Vieira in, and I think that was it. That left-hand side was changed too much. We already had Martinelli out, right? We need to be more familiar on that left-hand side in such a big, important game. And he took our best presser, like I said earlier on, out of the central area. And put him on the left-hand side. Now, I know he's played on the flanks for Man City, but I do think it was a mistake, and I definitely think that Vieira was a mistake as well. So hopefully he don't do it again.
Agreed, yeah. I think I'd rather see, if it comes to it like that again, I'd rather see Havertz as the orthodox 9 or Trossard.
At least you know you've got physicality, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, he definitely offers you that. Phil Macker asked who plays in goal Wednesday. So I'm going Ramsdale. Geoff, you going Ramsdale?
Yes, mate. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Josh, same?
Fine. Why not?
Trust you to be different. You're going Carl Hein, right?
Yeah, Carl Hein. Why not? We've got a third choice goalkeeper for some reason.
Yeah, he can stay on the bench.
It's probably not. It's going to be Ramsdale, isn't it?
Yeah, you'd think it'd be Ramsdale, particularly if Raya's going to play against Bournemouth.
Yeah, I don't think he's cup tied either, is he, Raya? Raya can't.
No, they've given him position to play that game. Which I mean, But then I think it was probably originally planned for him to play.
I don't trust it. Why would they give him? Why would they say you can play that game against us?
It's mind game.
He's only going to chuck it in, isn't he? Now.
Well, also they know how he plays, so I think it's reverse psychology to make us think should we play him. But
I know it happens all the time in Italy, but no, it's mind games. Right, it's Agent Raya. He's going to chuck one in.
Bring in Onana.
Yeah.
Jimmy H says in the games where let's try that again. In big games, we are our own worst enemies time and time again. When we take the lead, and then when it's at a big point in the match, we make huge mistakes. What gives goals away? And this is this team mentality. Danny, if you've got this in the background, if you can just flash up that goals conceded thing, because I just want to ask Geoff about this in terms of the in-ground experience. There we go. So on the screen there, Geoff, for those listening in podcast format, you've got Bournemouth we conceded after 9 seconds. Southampton last season in that horrible evening at the end of the season conceded to Alcaraz after 28 seconds. And then Fulham this season, 57 seconds. What I wanted to ask you, slightly away from Jimmy's question, but on the same lines, is in the ground, can you kind of see it coming in the sense that we talked earlier on about this hustle, bustle and racing around press thing? Is there a noticeable way that we set up from kickoff or from retakes from kickoffs? Or is it something to do with the shape? Or do you think it's just pure lack of focus?
Just lack of focus. It just must be lack of focus. I can't see any other reason. I mean, the golden rule, you keep it tight for 10 minutes, and I should imagine Arteta, it's the last thing he says. Do not concede a goal early. Do not concede. If Arsenal score the first goal, right, it's going to be very, very difficult for teams to overcome us, really. You generally, right? Or put it a different way, if Arsenal concede a goal first, again, we're under pressure. That emotion builds up. That's what we had all the time. The Southampton game last year, the Bournemouth game last year, every home game seems like there's a drama,
Drama before a crisis, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, why are we doing this to ourselves?
Does it worry you that the manager came out and said, I don't know, when he was asked how to stop this happening? Was that just Mikel being coy, or did that legit worry you a bit when he said that?
I just think he don't know. It's crazy. Game of football's crazy. You know what happens in games of football, and I'm sure players go out there. Okay, right, we're switched on, and then something happens, and it only takes a second to score a goal. Brian Clough used to say.
Yeah, my granddad always used to say that.
And if you switch off in the Premier League, It's on you. And I do think that there are teams that notice that we aren't switched on because obviously we've conceded all them stupid goals so early. They go, right, first thing we've got to do, let's try and win the toss-up, pump it straight into their box and see how we get on.
Yeah. Yeah. I just love to see us just, dare I say it, there was this talk a few weeks ago, wasn't there? It was like, is Arteta trying to make Arsenal a bit more boring this season? Can we have a bit more of that back, please? Just in certain, even segments of games? Or we just knock it from side to side for 5 minutes?
12, 14 passes. Let's play that game. Get the ball, 12, bore the pants off of someone for a little while.
Yeah. And then suck them in and then hit them.
Yeah.
Even if it's just for 5 minutes after you score. Just, I never subscribe to this idea that teams are most vulnerable when you've just scored against them. It's pure other team switches off. I just don't never buy into that. Yeah, agree.
5,000 passes.
Yeah. What was it? What was they used to call it? The Arc of Doom, whatever we used to play in Arsenal's late days. We played around this. Let's have more of that back, please. Just not the full 90 minutes. Can't deal with that. 2 quick last ones to finish then. Femme of our parish, Josh. What's the point in playing Cedric? I probably could just stop there, but bless him. What's the point in playing Cedric, who's leaving next summer in a League Cup, rather than blood players like Lino Souza or Raul Waters? Don't we have to start getting these players ready at some point? I do tend to agree with that, I have to say. Raul Waters looks physically ready to me, what I've seen. And this lad, Souza, for everything that people like George Bird, who knows his eggs in terms of the youth, says this kid's got it. Is there an argument to say, rather than playing the Cedrics and the formerly Rob Holdings, that you bring in these type of players?
Yeah, I guess that's why we've made space for them. I'm still trying to get it out of Collins when he'll listen, and he's actually starting covering Arsenal and not gallivanting off to Rugby World Cups and who knows what else. He was in Australia for a couple of months as well. I think obviously he's covering the Women's World Cup. Got a great gig. But anyway, I want his Arsenal news, please. And I want to know if Cedric is the only reason he's there is because he's doing his badges. That's what it feels like. I swear that's the only reason he's still there. It's because he's doing his badges and he's coaching.
Or no one wanted him. There is that argument.
Yeah, it could be that. But I feel like we try pretty much. We've terminated players' contracts. We're not worried about if we want someone out of the building. We'll just go, we'll see you later.
Arteta liked him, didn't he? He actively said he wanted him, didn't he? He was the one who gave him the deal.
All right, he's Arteta's mate. Well, if he's Arteta's mate, come on this podcast and we'll give him some ideas.
Get him in the picture with Carlos Cuesta and all the other guys. Get him in there. He'd be great.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a good professional, though. And
true.
Yeah, he's not kicking up a fuss, is he?
No, he's not that bad. Is he really that bad? I know he's not great, but he's not.
Technically, he's good.
Yeah.
He just can't defend for toffee.
No. It's a bit like Cedric Suarez. He is Cedric.
It is.
It's a bit like Nuno Tavares, who was just not quite as sexy. It's a bit like that, isn't it?
Yeah. What is it with Portuguese fullbacks and not known as
it is. Yeah.
Scoring winners and shit like that.
He's no Andre Santos, that's for sure. If you know, you know.
I don't know. I've not seen Cedric in months. Who knows what he's ballooned out to?
Well, wasn't he on the bench yesterday? I think he was on the bench yesterday.
Was he the one that hands out the Maltesers? Is that it? I'm pretty sure halfway through there, I saw either a giant catering tub of Malden salt or M&S mini rolls. It was one of the two. Someone could look back. If Third Eye was still on Soccer AM, someone would pick up on that. And I'm sure there was a tub of maybe that's it. What snacks have they got on the bench?
We've got AirPod Albert. Perhaps we could have like CFAX Cedric or something. I don't know. There's got to be some role we can find for him.
Cedric's smorgasbord, and that's what it is. And he wheels it out with his trolley full of snacks for the bench.
Again, if you're listening, Cedric, and you want to come on the podcast with Mikel and Granite, you're welcome. So we'll have you in. It's no problem.
Yeah.
Free for all.
Free for all. You've got plenty of spare time. We know.
Bring your dinner with you.
Yeah. Oh, that brings you back. And you can bring your fucking dinner. What was his name? The manager of
John Sitton.
John Sitton. What a lad.
Yeah, we follow each other on Twitter. He's funny. Have you seen anyone who hasn't seen that documentary? You got because it's so 1970s, 80s football.
Oh. There's two that jump to mind with that, Geoff. There's that one, and then there's the Neil Warnock one when he's at Huddersfield and he's in the shower and he's like, "There's 23,000 people out there in the pissing fucking rain, and you're playing like that." Oh,
there's another one about Barry Fry as well. Who used to be my manager. Funny enough,
Sky one, yes. Yeah,
and I remember I was at Barnet one time. I think we was 3-0 down against, I don't know who he was playing, Burton or one of them. And believe it or not, Stan Flashman was the chairman at the time. Stan Flashman was the biggest ticket tout the world has ever seen at the time. Right. And he's come in and they start rolling around on the floor, fighting each other. Honestly, it's just crazy. But Barry Fly had a fly on the wall documentary as well.
Yeah.
Similar. You've got to watch that. It is so funny.
I think it was on Sky. I think it's one of Sky's first like fly on the wall documentaries.
Yeah.
But
Lovely fella, Barry Fry, by the way.
What club was that? It wasn't Peterborough, was it? Or was it Peterborough?
I think it was Peterborough, yeah.
Because there was that manager, wasn't there? That Fry was like the chairman, and that manager was just he wasn't even a manager, was he? He wasn't fit to coach at all. And I remember that Sky documentary. It was good. And I've just finished, actually, I know he's not popular on this podcast, but mentioned him earlier on. I just finished Harry Redknapp's autobiography. And if you can cut through a lot of the bullshit, and there is plenty, but he does tell that story of the West Ham pre-season game where that lad was giving him shit from the touchline, and he said, I can do better. And he gave him, he said, well, there's a kit, here's a pair of boots, fucking get on there. And the guy came on and scored. So it just doesn't happen anymore in these modern football. Anyway, off track we go. Final question. There you go. Look, Danny's just put on the screen all the players that have disappeared under the Arteta era.
To be fair, we could include still Smith Rowe. I haven't seen him in a while. It's just Saka and Martinelli, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's amazing, isn't it? Though, really,
there's a lot of players gone there, isn't there? Yeah, and watching Aubameyang at Parc des Princes last night, that was sad. Bless him. Anyway, final question, Geoff. You can have this one from Avon. Avon Teddington. Was there something that Tottenham were doing yesterday that the referee allowed them to do that gave them an advantage? I don't know where he's going with that. They did get a few. I thought the referee was all right yesterday. To be fair, there's only one time I called him a interesting word, but yeah. Did you feel like Spurs got away with a few things yesterday?
You know what? I ain't done the rewatch yet. I am going to, but I've been very busy today. But I'm definitely tomorrow. I normally always do a full 90-minute rewatch.
Yeah,
and it's generally a totally different game to what you're watching live.
Yeah,
at the match, because you can. There's so much to view, whereas on television it shows everything for you, and I'm saying up close.
Yeah.
So, but no, not really. Nothing that I can remember. Maybe Josh, you did you think? Can you think of anything where?
Avon's just put in the chat, actually. Sorry, I've just found it. He said, what prompted my question is that the ball was in play for 52 minutes of the 106, and the second choice in the Premier League this season behind Newcastle.
I replied to that in the chat. My feeling, but again, I haven't watched it back, was that was more our fault. That Raya kept kicking out of play. They disrupted us perfectly, but it kept always being for throw-ins rather than fouls. I think I might quickly have a look at the stats and just double check what. Well, actually, they had 19 fouls and we had 12. That probably didn't help.
Home side, away side, it's about right, isn't it? Yeah.
Especially in a derby, but I felt like it was the throw-ins. That second half, if someone counted it, the number of times Raya put it out of touch, it just seemed like moves were breaking down, and we never really brought any momentum up. But I think we gave as good as we got as well. It was a couple of opportunities that when we should have put in a tackle, we didn't. Whereas Tottenham were a bit better at doing that and cutting our breaks off quite early, I think. You look at it, Jorginho probably does a bit of the Ben White versus PSV and just grabs...
Pulls him down.
Grabs Maddison's legs. Just goes, screw it. Take the yellow, whatever.
I fucking love Ben White. His face
and
after he did that.
The same for Saka against James Maddison as well. Just wipe the boy out on there. He's not gone into the box yet. That opportunity for a free kick isn't as dangerous as letting Maddison into the box and playing a ball square across there. You can set a wall up. He's got loads of different options at that point. You trust Ramsdale at that point to claim the cross if it was one way or the other. So I think there's a couple of bits of naivety. I think
it's funny you should mention that as well, because I don't know if you thought this as well, Geoff, and you might see this in the rewatch. I thought that Odegaard booking really hampered his game yesterday. 100%. He got that booking so early, and he couldn't press. He couldn't do that because Odegaard's quite good at the niggly foul, the Rodri foul, if you like. And he couldn't do it, and that I feel that really held him back yesterday.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's an interesting point. Thanks for clarifying there, Avon. That's a good point to make. And yeah, don't want to give Spurs any credit, of course, but yeah, their rotational fouling was quite clever. Sarr, Basuma, Udogie. Who was it? Was it Pedro Porro on the other side?
Well, they brought Højbjerg on as well.
Oh, of course, the king of shithousery, if there ever was one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, I did think they were. There's definitely worse teams for time wasting in Newcastle. But yeah, interesting. Cool. Okay. Right. Well, we've given you all 2 hours tonight, which we did not really plan to do podcasts this long this season. But, this is one of those games where you do just sort of feel like you need to go deep into the affair because there was quite a lot to talk about and certainly a lot of talking points. So thank you for all of those who've been patient and stuck with us for a bit of a longer pod. Brady's Bananas just popped into the chat and it's just said, did you talk about Sky Sports Carragher comment on Ramsdale applause Scouse wanker? Yeah,
I did allude to it about how Nick Senior or Ramsdale Senior, has come on and mentioned that. He said, you know what, he's just applauding it. There's nothing in it.
No, of course there isn't. And also,
but you know what Carragher's like.
Yeah, of course. And Gary Neville having another orgasm as Son equalised. That was always nice to hear as well. The fucking weapon. Anyway, remember. Oh, sorry, I have to just throw this in. Gary Neville talking about us over celebrating. Sorry, Gary. When you won against Liverpool at Old Trafford and you were flicking the V's to Liverpool fans, you've forgotten that, have you, mate? Yeah, thought you had. Anyway, that's where we will leave this podcast. Have to leave it on a Neville rant, didn't we? Josh, thanks for coming back on. You've got Brighton matches to watch, so we'll see you in what, January?
Depends who gets knocked out first.
Good point. Or if Arsenal draw Brighton, perhaps we'll get you on then and we'll fight you over who's going to be. Yeah.
Maybe.
All jokes aside, support your local people. I'm enjoying Argyle this season. They won 6-2 at Norwich, at home to Norwich at the weekend.
Well,
so,
glory hunter now that they're in a decent league.
Yeah, well, you got to do these things. But yeah, thanks for coming on, mate. Appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Pleasure. And Geoff, don't leave it so long, mate. I know you're a busy man, but even if you do one every 6 months,
No, I promise you, I'm gonna at least do one every 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Yeah, at least.
All right, I'm holding you to that.
Danny's. If we go by Danny's stat, Geoff, it's been 100 podcasts since you've last been on.
Oh, I can't believe that. That was amazing.
And you got no excuse. You got no excuse now, Geoff. We've got a fantastic host doing every podcast this year. He's great.
That's true. It's true.
I mean, he's elite here.
It flows much more.
Exactly. And none of that.
And you wear your top.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, none of that old, nonsense. We're all organised here now.
You wear Danny's that are shrunk in the wash.
Yeah,
well, exactly. Obviously, the viewers that haven't seen what we saw before we came on.
I'm sure Danny can put the picture up for those who haven't seen.
I don't think so. No. I don't think so. Anyway, listen, it's been a pleasure. Honestly, yes. I've really enjoyed it, and it's great.
There is the picture. Oh my good God, there is the picture once again.
Listen, I've got to go. I've got to try and go to sleep now. How am I going to do that?
Oh.
Sweet dreams, Geoff. Fantastic. No, we will absolutely have you on again, mate. And I know you've got a lot of things to do and a lot of pies. You're a busy man, but yeah, anytime you are free, just do what you did today. Stick it in the chat, and we'll get you back on. So
no problem, mate. It's been great to see you again, guys. God bless you. Yeah.
You too, and give our love to all the other 400 podcasts. I'm joking. Say hello to Boyd for us, all right? Right.
Cheers,
you
mate.
too. Thank you to everybody who has joined us in the chat tonight. Much appreciated. It's always the regular names. We appreciate you, but anybody new who might be listening on the podcast in delay, pop into the live chat. We're all a friendly bunch. And if people aren't friendly to you, give us their names and we'll send Danny around with a chainsaw. It's not a problem. But in all seriousness, yesterday was painful. It wasn't the most pleasant, a draw that feels like a loss, but I think that represents just how far we've come. Onwards to Brentford on Wednesday and Bournemouth at the weekend. So whatever you're doing, keep it Arsenal. And we'll speak to you very soon. Good night.
As soon as I scored that goal, I was fucking livid. Get down, dog. Splendid business.
He nearly caught the bloody thing. What are you talking about?
So I was just eating a full quiche. Well, you don't often see them at it. So when you see them in the supermarket, they need to be swagged, microwaved immediately, and get the brown sauce on and bosh, Bob's your uncle.
Never in doubt.